the home directory that the README was talking about. I just posted some notes in Slack and they helped me. Zarella actually helped me. She came online and in the Zoom we discussed and I did some stuff. I wouldn't have been able to do it by myself because I just didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And I guess like number 6, line 6, line 7, and line 8, it did not pass the test. I don't know why. I just submitted it. I still need to learn.
Yeah, so the good news is, so Git and GitHub, that's what we're going to go over this morning. We're also going to go over that tomorrow morning as well. Git and GitHub they can be a little dense at first, but the good news is, I would argue of like any skill that you leave from this course, that's going to be one of the most basic skills that you're just going to be doing it in your sleep. So I know it's probably a little confusing at first, but just hang in there. That's something you're going to be doing all the time, and it's going to, it's going to get better with practice.
Good. Okay, that's good to hear.
So, we'll get through it for sure. Did anyone else have any thoughts they wanted to share? Just raise it. Yeah. Brad, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention some of my difficulties I had yesterday, mostly in class, not so much with the homework, was spelling. Because when I'm trying to figure out these things that are foreign to me, and I'm trying to access things that are misspelled, I'm thinking, oh, well, I'm not getting this. I don't have the right syntax. Doing it over and over again, following the instructions, what's going on. And maybe I misspelled it whenever I set it up, and I'm spelling it right when I'm trying to access it, or vice versa. And that's huge. So always double check your spelling.
That's a great point. So we mentioned yesterday that like you are not your code. And particularly in the beginning, I find that most student errors, they're really simple. It's a misspelling, particularly with JavaScript. I'm sure you guys have realized there's a lot of punctuation involved. So a lot of times it's just like, you didn't close a curly bracket, or there's a semicolon or something where it shouldn't be. So again, that's not a reflection on you as a developer. It just takes some, maybe a little bit of attention to detail and a little bit of practice too. So that's a really good point. Thanks for that. Anyone else before we move forward?
I have a question. I couldn't even access the folder, whatever it was called. It was like w01d02, whatever it was. I couldn't access that until I put underscores in between where the spaces were. Is that common?
Sorry, are you talking about the GitHub repo?
Whatever you guys sent us yesterday when I was trying to access it in the terminal, unless I switched where the spaces were in between things. Like I can pull it up right now and look.
Do you mind sharing your screen?
Yeah, one second.
Are you referring to the homework or to something we gave you in class?
Yeah, the homework yesterday.
Oh,
like,
okay.
The file I couldn't access unless I replaced the spaces with underscores. I'll show you.
Sure.
See right here where it's w01d01 underscore hw underscore 2.
Mm-hmm.
When I got the file initially, these were just spaces, the underscores. I couldn't get it to pull up anything unless I renamed the file with those underscores there. And I didn't understand why. But
so are you referring to, so Matt sent out like a zipped version to download? Yeah, so those spaces probably just confuse the terminal. And in the terminal, if there's it needs dashes or underscores, because if you only have spaces in a file name or a directory, it's going to think you're trying to add arguments. So as far as the terminal is concerned, any kind of file path needs to have either underscores or dashes. It doesn't.
That's what I've been adding to them. I didn't know if that was like standard or what, but anytime I've had spaces instead of dashes or underscores, it's given me like a real pain in the ass.
Yeah, and that's, you probably won't encounter that throughout the course. I think that's just because we zipped you that file last night. Most of the stuff, pretty much all the stuff we'll be doing, you'll actually be cloning and forking from your repo. That's something we're going to do this morning, is set you guys up with the GitHub access, which you all should have been invited to your repo, and we'll just double check that you have access to that. But one more thing before we leave, Richard, on that note. So I saw that you were typing in the entire file path. Sometimes you put lowercase, sometimes you put uppercase. What's a technique that we learned yesterday that can save you some typing and can help you get the directories or file names very accurate? What's a shortcut that we learned yesterday that we can do from the command line?
The tab thing.
Yeah, perfect. Who said that? Zarilla? Cool, thanks. Yeah, absolutely. So remember, if you start typing in a file path or a directory, if it's a valid file path or directory, if you hit tab, it'll auto-complete it for you. So sometimes that's a really good sanity check to make sure that something exists, in addition to not misspelling something, in addition to saving yourself some keystrokes, because as developers, we're inherently lazy people for the most part. So however much time we can save ourselves, the better. Cool. All right. One more quick thing I wanted to point out before we hop into today's lesson. One thing that I found in the past, students are often curious about what lessons are coming up, like the next day or throughout the week, maybe the next week. Is anybody curious about that kind of stuff? Because a lot of times students want to, what can I do to prepare for tomorrow? What can I do to, over the weekend to prepare for next week? Things like that. Now, hopefully you'll be so overwhelmed with homework that you won't have much time to look too far in the future. We don't want you looking too far ahead. However, I did want to point out some resources where you can find out if you're curious about the next day, the next week's topics that we're going to cover. Now, obviously, the first thing you can do is you can just ping one of us and ask us. We're happy to, kind of give you the game plan for the next day or two. But I wanted to point out, Christine did a really good job on our student handbook doc that we walked through yesterday. We didn't go through it in excruciating detail, but I wanted to point out, I'm going to paste it back into your Slack channel, and I want to just point out something before we move forward. So I'm going to put it in here right now. I'm going to share my screen briefly. Cool. So this is the handbook document, and I just wanted to point your attention over here on the left-hand side. There's the section WDI unit flow. So if you click on that, it shows you, it doesn't necessarily show you a day-by-day breakdown, but it does show you the broad strokes of what we're going to cover in a given week. So if you are curious as to the flow, the order of topics we're going to cover, in broad strokes, this will give you what's coming up for the week. The other thing I wanted to show you is, has anyone ever used Trello or heard of Trello before? Okay, we're going to talk about this in the next few weeks. Trello is a really popular project management tool. You guys are going to be using this tool probably for all of your projects. We're going to want you to create user stories. We're going to want you to really think through and plan out the steps in successfully creating an app. So we use this tool internally. You guys don't have access to this Trello board, as we call it. But we have the entire course charted out for the most part, by day, who's teaching what, etc. So here on this Trello board, for example, here's what we're going to do today. We also put funny pictures each day to keep ourselves, keep it light. But this morning, for example, we're going to have a GitHub lesson. This afternoon, we're going to cover some HTML. Tomorrow morning, we're going to have, Matt mentioned, this pseudocoding lesson. Then we're going to have some more Git and GitHub coverage. Tomorrow afternoon, we're going to hop into CSS. And so we have this for every day and every week. The cool thing about this board, as you guys, because you guys will be using this soon as well, if we run over, if we need to reorganize something, which we frequently do, just depending on timing and such, we can just move these cards to a different day. It's a really cool management tool. But I wanted to point this out. So if the student handbook doc, again, this is kind of like the broad strokes for the week. It doesn't necessarily tell you which day of the week we're covering something. if you're really curious about exactly what we're doing tomorrow, AM, PM, I just wanted to let you guys know, you can always just ping us and we can kind of give you a heads up. So just wanted to put that out there so you're not in the dark. I'm going to stop my screen share. Any questions about that? Okay. Sounds good. So with no further ado, let's hop into our Git and GitHub coverage this morning. So if you look in Slack, I pasted in a section, I pasted in the README for today's lesson. If you guys want to go ahead and click on that. Yeah, I see Dana posted in Slack, Basecamp is a lot like Trello. Yeah, Basecamp is another project management tool. There's several out there. There's one called Pivotal Tracker. Has anyone heard of Pivotal Tracker before? That's a really good consultancy, dev shop consultancy, and they have their own tool that's really well done that folks in the field use. Has anyone heard of Basecamp before other than Dana? Cool. So does anyone want to volunteer what Basecamp, what came after Basecamp, or what Basecamp was the kind of the ancestor of a particular technology? What derived from Basecamp?
Summit.
That is absolutely correct. The Summit came after Basecamp. That's partly true. I guess I'm thinking more of a technology standpoint. Dana, you're laughing. You must know, what company created Basecamp? So Basecamp was created by a company called 37 Signals. So what else was derived from Basecamp? We're going to get into this in the next few weeks, but it's something that we're going to cover in the last unit. Aaron, go for it.
That was a hint. Is it Ruby on Rails?
It's Ruby on Rails, exactly. So Basecamp actually was so successful, this consultancy called 37 Signals created Basecamp. And it was such a great piece of software that they stripped out, they kind of repackaged it, stripped out the really cool features, the scaffolding of this Basecamp app. And that's what Ruby on Rails became, because it was so popular and such a great framework to use. And we'll talk a little bit about that down the road, but that's interesting that you mentioned Basecamp. You guys are super, super ahead of the curve here. Okay, so let's talk about our Git and GitHub lesson today, what we're going to cover. So I'll put the objectives here into Slack. Try that one more time. Put a screenshot in there for you. Give me 1 second here. I want to make it easy on you guys so you don't have to keep looking at the README if you don't want to. You can just focus on Slack here. Bear with me. There we go. Okay, so while that's loading up, let's walk through kind of our objectives for this morning's coverage. We're also going to stop around 11 to do a stand-up. So as we mentioned, we do a stand-up in the morning and then one in the afternoon just to check in with you guys. And that also helps to break up the flow of the day a little bit. It's a good time to literally stand up and stretch your legs. So our objectives for this morning, we want to install Brew and Git. Now you guys already have a version of Git on your machine. Your Apple Mac machines actually come with several pieces of software out of the box. It comes with Git, for example. It comes with a version of Postgres, which is a database that we're going to use. It also comes with a version of Ruby actually built in, because it runs some processes under the hood with Ruby scripts. What we want to do actually is install our own versions of these pieces of software and languages because we want to maintain flexibility. We want to be able to easily pull updates as they occur. And we want to make sure that all these pieces of software, right now they're located in different places on your machine. We want to do our own installs in a very particular place. And so we're going to start that today by installing a fresh version of Git. And whenever we use Git going forward, we're going to use this new version that we're going to install on your machine. We're going to talk about version control. We're going to understand the difference between Git and GitHub, because sometimes those lines get a little blurry. We'll practice using Git to push to a GitHub repo, because this is something you're going to do on a daily basis. We'll explain basic Git commands like init, add, commit, push, pull, and clone. And hopefully a lot of this is somewhat familiar from your pre-work. That's our hope. We'll differentiate between remotes, origin, and upstream. Distinguish between different environments, local, Cloud9, and remote repositories. And then we're actually going to fork and clone a remote repository. Specifically, we're going to fork and clone you guys' remote repo, where we put all of the exercises, all of the lessons and such. We're going to set you guys up this morning. So preparation for this lesson, you guys are already somewhat familiar with the command line using a text editor. Give me a show of hands, how many folks have signed up for a Cloud9 account? Okay, cool. That's pretty much everyone. So that was part of your pre-work as well, yes? Or I think we may have slacked you to ask you to do that. Cool. The great thing about Cloud9, to the extent that it's appropriate for a particular lesson, is we like to try to avoid sharing our screen. So one great advantage of Cloud9 is that you guys can actually watch as we type, and you can copy code. And so hopefully that'll alleviate some of this screen sharing. And that's one of the great advantages to using Cloud9. So you can get the code directly from there. All right, let's go to this first section. So before we start really talking about Git and GitHub, what I wanted to do is go through installing Git, this new version of Git locally, because sometimes I don't anticipate we'll have any issues, but when we're installing software as developers, there's always a chance for a hiccup or something. So the first thing we're going to do is install brew Git and set up our local machine. So step one we're going to do is we're going to install Homebrew. So what is Homebrew, you may ask? Well, if you're on the README, you can click that link. I'm also going to put it into Slack. Does anyone know what Homebrew is, or has anyone used it before? Jason, you want to give us a quick and dirty of what Homebrew does for us?
Sure. My understanding of it is that it adds a lot of repos that you can pull down from. It's very similar to like the way Ubuntu Linux is set up, and install packages and whatnot using the terminal. So it's like the App Store, but just via terminal in a lot of ways, is my understanding.
Yeah, that's a really great description. So it's a very easy way for us to install packages from the command line. We're going to use several of these package managers, if you will, as we go through the course. And Homebrew is a really popular and common one that we can install things like Chrome and Atom and Git. So we're going to go ahead and get Homebrew working on your machine. So to start, go ahead and open up your terminal. And you can run this command from anywhere because it's kind of a global command. I'll put this into Slack. So go ahead and copy that command and paste it on the command line for me. If we already have brew, do we need to remove it before doing these commands, or just hang tight? If you already have brew installed, I would just hang tight for the moment. Does anyone else have brew installed by any chance? I wouldn't imagine that most of you would. Okay, if you do have brew installed, no worries. Just hang tight for these first several steps. One way you can check if you have brew on your machine is type in this command, which brew. So that should return the path of where brew is installed, if it is indeed installed on your machine. So that's a really quick way to check it out. If you don't have brew install, go ahead and run that command from the command line. Just copy that command. You can run it from any directory because it's global. And then give me a thumbs up in Slack on that message when you successfully install Brew. It may take just a minute to install. Some machines may be faster than others. We have 1 thumbs up. That's good. Yeah, so Aaron says, I have it in user local bin brew, and that is correct. So if you have it in user local bin brew, then you're good to go. So we'll hang tight for just a little bit till we get some thumbs ups. And actually, if you already have it installed, go ahead and give me a thumbs up for that command as well.
I typed that script and nothing seems to be, I mean, it gave me a lot of text, but nothing seems to be installing.
Did you copy it from, did you type it out longhand, or did you copy it from Slack?
Yeah, from Slack.
You want to share your screen? We'll take a look.
Yep. It's exactly what popped up when I did that. And then that's what happens.
Okay. Let's scroll up what command, let's see the command that you put in there. Let's just check that. And then scroll down to the bottom, please. Yeah, that looks fine. It just looks like it's telling you what it's going to, the permissions and such that it's going to install. So that looks okay to me. I'd go ahead and click return. Is anyone else getting, it's been so long since I installed Homebrew, and that password should be your system password that it's asking for. Is anyone else getting something similar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I got the same exact message, and then it's asking for a password.
Okay.
Yeah, I got the same thing too.
What's that, Kelly?
I got the same thing too, and then
Okay.
I asked for my password.
Yeah, so go ahead and put in, so it's asking for your system password, and that's
Yeah,
fine.
and then it just took a minute, and I think it's
Yeah.
downloading it now.
Yeah, it's going to download quite a few things, so it may take just a minute. That other message that was showing up, it said something, I think it was like man sudo. It was suggesting a command. Does anyone know what sudo stands for? S-U-D-O? Aaron, what does S-U-D-O mean? So go ahead and unmute yourself, Aaron.
Right. Super user something. I know it's when you need to use, the master administration account for the computer to do whatever, but it's super users.
Yeah, you got the first part right. What does the DO stand for?
I don't know.
So the DO stands for do.
Ah.
So it's,
That's why I always forget it, because it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's too simple.
Yeah,
It's
it's
something much more
deceptively.
complicated.
Yeah, so that stands for super user do. And what does that command accomplish? What does it do?
It's just basically when if you're just using a basic user account and you don't have.
Sorry, I think you muted yourself again.
Damn it! Yeah. Don't want anybody to hear what's going on back here. You use it when you need to access system files or places that a typical generic user wouldn't have access to, and it has a special password to access those functions.
Yeah. So super user do, it's kind of like the nuclear option for forcing something to happen on your machine, whether you're installing something or trying to set permissions. Colin mentioned yesterday, for example, you need to be, Tom mentioned yesterday, you need to be very careful when you're entering particular commands from the terminal. I don't know if he mentioned sudo yesterday, but you want to try to avoid sudo as much as you can. There's generally a more elegant way to accomplish something without using sudo. If you get to the point where you have to use sudo, then you probably want to rethink some of your steps. So with very few exceptions, you want to try to avoid that as much as possible, because it can be very dangerous at times. So let's see how we're doing here. So we've got 6 thumbs up on that.
I'm sorry, Mark. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
I'm a little behind. I just missed what you were saying. Where can I download Homebrew?
So I put in to Slack, I put in a command. If you look up around 10:22 a.m., it says run this command from the command line.
Yeah,
So
I did it.
you copy that command and into the command line
Yep.
and hit enter. You
Yeah,
can do it
I
from
just
any
did that.
directory. It's a global command. Okay. So you do that. Are you getting some errors or?
No errors. It just says install master install.
Yeah, that's totally fine. So it's going to take a minute to download the software. So just hang tight.
So it's gonna download for me, so I don't have to do anything, right?
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
Just hang tight. Let your machine do all the heavy lifting here. When it finishes, it should go back to a command line
Thank you.
prompt. Yeah, so just hang tight. Looks like we have a couple of errors here.
Mine went back to a command line prompt, but I can't like search and find Homebrew anywhere on my computer. It shows that it's there, and then I type brew help and a bunch of text pops up, but should it show up underneath my downloads? Or,
no, it should install it in the bin local bin folder for you. It's not like you download it and you have to click on it to install it. It should put it in the correct place out of the box. If you do which brew, does it show you a path?
yeah, local bin brew. User local bin brew.
Yeah, that's perfect. If you're getting, let me go ahead and let's get a thumbs up on something else. I'll put this into Slack. Okay. So give me a thumbs up in Slack if you can type in which brew, and that path is returned. So some of you may need to wait a minute till it finishes installing. But go ahead and give me a thumbs up there. Adam, fatal error. File exists.
Yeah, I got that fatal error, but it looks like when I'm running which brew, it's still showing the right path. So I don't know if that mattered.
Did you already have it installed?
I had Git installed from going through the pre-work, but I hadn't done anything with Homebrew, no.
But when you do which brew, you get that user local bin brew. Okay. I would just hang tight then. Maybe you already have it installed if that's the case. I mean, obviously, it's finding a version of Homebrew in your machine. So I think you're good for. And today we're not doing like any crazy heavy lifting. We're just going to play around with Git, but we wanted to install a different version of it.
Cool.
So worst case, if anyone's completely blowing up, we can still move forward with the lesson. We may just like touch base at break or something to get you set up. But as long as you're getting that user local bin brew, we should be in good shape. So it looks like my Slack from 10:32, we have 9 thumbs ups. So we're looking for around 17. I think that was Tom's threshold yesterday. Is anyone still downloading? Okay. Yeah, that's okay. Depending on your internet speed and such. So one advantage, in my opinion, of this remote class is that when we're all in the same room, if we were all like on campus in the same room, anytime we try to install software, it takes forever because there's such a bottleneck. You've got like 25 people trying to access and download this stuff from the same internet port, right? The same, VPN or not VPN, but the same Wi-Fi access point. So it takes a long time. Traditionally, I would like split the class into like, 3 or 4 people and like, all right, you guys go in the kitchen, you guys go like in the lobby, you guys go like Starbucks. and download this stuff. Or like for homework, we would ask them to install this stuff at night if it was a pretty dense piece of software. Jesse says it isn't doing anything right now, seems to be stalled. Okay, so sometimes maybe we can share your screen in a second, Jesse, but that's something to be aware of when you're downloading stuff from the terminal. Sometimes it's not very good about giving you good messages, and sometimes you'll think it's stalled, but it's actually like still spinning in the background, just trying to get some stuff downloaded. So it may not be stalled, it may just be like working. So I'd maybe give that a second just to confirm. And Jesse, I guess you and Brad seem to be having the same issue. So Jesse, do you want to share your screen? We'll just confirm. We'll take a look. By the way, this is why I wanted to do this at the top of the lesson, because this is pretty typical of software development and installing new software. Sometimes it goes absolutely perfect, and sometimes, given that we're all on different machines, probably different varieties of Macs and such, sometimes it just takes longer than others. But yeah, Jesse, I guess Jesse or Brad, if one of you guys want to share your screen, we'll take a look.
It just said it's downloaded now.
Okay. So maybe it was just like working in the background or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's still frozen. I think I entered it twice. The first time I noticed I was missing one of the quotes when I copied and pasted it.
Okay.
Probably not the smartest thing, but I did it again. Should I share my screen or?
Jesse, if you don't mind, if you wouldn't mind going up to my message at 10:32 and giving me a thumbs up if it's successfully installed. I appreciate that. So looks like we have 10 folks with thumbs ups. So for the 9 or 10 other folks, is it still downloading? Any messages? Someone want to come on mic and let us know what's happening? Just want to make sure you guys are good. Okay, still downloading. Yeah, no worries.
Hey, Sanas, you're muted still. There you go.
Yeah, I am. Sorry. So I was gonna say mine is not doing anything. How can I say that it's downloading?
I would just give it a second. So that was happening to some other folks.
Okay.
Like I said, sometimes the terminal isn't great about giving you like a little beach ball or something telling you that it's working. So sometimes it's just like a hurry up and wait type situation. But if you want to share your screen, we can take a quick peek.
Sure. Let me just share my screen.
Okay.
Can you see it?
Yeah, so
this is
okay. So it looks like, yeah, so what you did here is you're missing that closing quote. And so if everybody wants to take a look at this, this is a really good life lesson. So see how you have that greater than symbol?
This
Do
one.
you know what that means?
This one here?
Yeah. Do you know what that what that's asking you?
It means it's waiting for you to type something in.
Yeah, it's assuming that you haven't completed your command or your statement. In this case, you opened up a quote and it's expecting you to finish it. So go ahead and at that prompt, put a quote, a double quote, and hit enter. Okay, cool. So we should be good now. And so see right there at the top, like where it says Sanaz Jamblou, is that right?
Yeah.
By the way, you guys notice how it's like dash Ruby dash 8226? You guys see that? So underneath the hood, your Mac is actually using a Ruby script to go and grab this stuff. So like I said, you guys already have Ruby installed because Mac uses Ruby for particular processes and stuff. Okay, go ahead and hit return. So as we saw previously, this is just going to kind of let you know what it's installing. So it's asking for your password. This is going to be your system password for your Mac.
Okay, should I just put it in?
Yeah.
It's not typing anything.
Yeah, so it's not going to show you the keystrokes for security reasons, but it is taking it.
Okay. Let's see if it works. Looks like it did.
Yeah. Looks like you're in good shape.
Okay, looks like it's installing now.
Yeah. Looking good.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Should I just stop sharing my screen?
Sure. Yeah, if you have any other issues, just ping me, but I think you're in good shape now.
Thank you.
No problem.
Could I share my screen real quick?
Sure.
Mine did something, but it's I think I may need to do it again. Here, let me show you.
Okay. Yeah, so you had the same issue. Yeah, you had the same issue that Sanaz did.
Should I just re-enter the whole thing, or?
Yeah, go ahead and paste it again. So you kind of got into the terminal. Okay, and that, sorry, let's do it. Let's hit the pause button real quick. So I just saw you use your mouse to paste something. So we're going to come up with like a swear box or something, and you're going to like, anyone who uses their mouse, we're trying to get you out of the habit of using the mouse, but kind of the lowest hanging fruit is using copy and paste with the mouse. So sorry to be a bad cop about that, but let's get into the habit of using the keyboard shortcuts for copy and paste for sure. That's going to save you a lot of time.
Okay.
So that being said, yeah, this looks good. So go ahead and hit enter.
There it goes.
Cool. Yes, I think that was the same issue. It looked like you didn't close out your double quote there. That's pretty common. No worries. So go ahead and hit enter, and then type in your system password there.
Shoot, I don't recall what that is. Oh, but I used to log in my computer?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, looks like you're in good shape as well. So we'll just give that a few seconds to finish downloading.
Okay.
And then just a reminder, you guys, if you have completed, if it has completed downloading, if you go into Slack at 10:32 a.m., I put in that message, give me a thumbs up if you type in which brew, and that path is returned. So if you haven't thumbs upped that message, please do. Cool. We got a 10 and a 1. That's good. Just so we can know when to move forward.
Okay. Let me stop sharing now.
Yeah, cool. I think you're in good shape.
I think I'm good.
And I'm going to go ahead and do this for you guys that have successfully installed. I'm going to go ahead and put in the next set of commands. And so you guys can go ahead and move forward. Is anyone, before I do that, does anyone have any errors or just still downloading right now? Is that what we're waiting on? Okay, well, just ping me in Slack if you're getting any errors. But I'm going to put in our next step into Slack here. So once you've successfully downloaded Brew, installed it, run these 3 commands in Bash. So you'll run these 3 separately. Remember, don't paste in, actually you could just type in these longhand, but the $, don't use the $. The $, is merely representing that this command goes in the command line. So anytime you see the $, unless we tell you, you don't need to type in the $. So what we want to do, we want to type in brew update. So that's just going to get the latest version. You guys probably already have the latest version because you just installed it. So you're probably fine. Then brew upgrade, we're just going to pull all of the available packages and such. Again, that probably, you're probably fine on that. For those of you that already had brew installed, these commands may be helpful. And then finally, run that brew install git. So that is going to install a version of Git in a very specific place on your machine where we're going to be placing other pieces of software as we go through the course. So go ahead and run those 3 if you successfully downloaded Homebrew and installed it, and then give me a thumbs up in Slack once those 3 have completed. Isn't development fun, you guys? Isn't this great?
How did they get the emoji in the terminal line there? I have like a little brew, a little beer.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So brew, Homebrew, everything is. You'll see this like with different software that we use. For example, when we get into Ruby, everything is like Ruby. Ruby flavored naming and syntax and such. Like Ruby has packages called gems. There's also test suites. There's a test suite called Mocha, which uses a package called Chai. There's a lot of different like tongue-in-cheek things. So Homebrew, as you can probably surmise, it's all about like brewing. We're going to install something called a brew cask. We'll install taps for our brew to download different packages. It's very very clever. But yeah, I'm not sure how they get that emoji on the command line. It's probably some sort of like little, well, it's probably colorful, but I wonder if it's like an ASCII type representation or something. Let's see. If programmers have humor, it's puns. Very true. For the last install Git, I got warning 2.93 already installed. It's just not linked. Is that okay? Yeah, I would hold tight on that for a second. We're going to do some linking here in the next few steps. Is anyone else getting some sort of error saying that Git's already installed or something?
The last thing that showed up for me was just a summary, and then it just showed where it was in the user local seller Git. That should be the last thing that pops up, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if it goes back to that, you should be fine. But Zarella, did it successfully install? Did it successfully install? It just gave you that warning, or it just completely barfed on you?
No, I already had it. So when I did the update, I got like all these running things and it say up to date. The upgrade was fine, but when I did the last one, that's the only message I got.
Right. So I'm just curious, did you already have Homebrew installed? So you already had a version of Git that you would install with Homebrew?
I guess I installed a few things before from a little class I took. So I'm guessing that's what it is.
Why don't you share your screen? Let's just take a quick peek. So like I said, you guys already have Git on your machine out of the box. We're installing a different version of Git. Sometimes your machine can get a little confused on which one it's pointing at, which one you want to use going forward. So we may just need to set up to your machine which version to use.
Okay, can you see it?
Yeah. Okay, give me a which brew. Okay, and give me a which Git. Okay, yeah, I think you're fine for now.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So it looks like I'm going to scroll up here to my 1132 message. So it looks like I have 12 thumbs up for the Homebrew install. Has anyone not installed Brew successfully? Just give me like a hand if you're still trying to install Homebrew. Okay. So I have 12 thumbs in Slack, and I don't see any hands, so I'm going to assume that Homebrew is all good. Let's go down to the one at 1045 with those 3 brew commands, and I have 17. Well, I have 16 thumbs and a smiley face. Somebody went off script for that one, but that's okay. Oh, a nerd face, excuse me. Snaz. Maybe we should do nerd faces instead of thumbs up. Keep it interesting. Is anyone still running brew upgrade, brew update, brew upgrade, or brew install Git? Is anyone still working on that step? Okay. Okay, yeah, so we have 17 folks this morning, so that's actually perfect. Great. All right, you guys, we're almost at the finish line. The next thing we want to do is install brew cask. I'm going to put this into Slack. And we're also going to install another version of Atom. Who has Atom installed already or has been using Atom? Okay. Okay. Again, we should be fine. We're just going to go ahead and install another version. Actually, let's do this. Sorry, one more time. Give me a thumbs up if you already have Atom installed locally. Okay. Okay, we'll take care of that in the next step. So Atom is the text editor that we're going to use throughout class. Now, we highly encourage you to use Atom just because that's what we as an instructional team have agreed on that we're going to use consistently for our lessons and stuff. Does anyone use Sublime Text? Okay, Sublime Text is awesome. So, I'm not going to like, wrap your knuckles with the ruler if you want to use Sublime Text. I was just going to give you guys the heads up that in class, the official thing that we're going to use is Atom. So if there's any kind of errors or if we're using a command that, for the most part, Atom and Sublime, they're pretty much apples to apples. But I just wanted to give you that heads up that if we happen to do something in Atom and you're not able to do it in Sublime, just wanted to make you aware that we're going to be using Atom for the most part. So here's the next thing we want to do. We want to install our brew. Oh, that didn't, let me re-edit that. The brew cask room. So this is going to give us insight into all of the packages that Homebrew has available for us to install. Sorry, let me get the highlighting correct here. Bear with me. There you go, try that. So we're also going to install Brew, Cask, and Atom Sublime and Spectacle. But before we do that, we're going to install the Cask room. And again, this will give us access to all of the packages that are available for Homebrew. So copy in that or type it out, brew tap cask room / cask. And remember that you don't need to type in the $sign. So that's just representing that you should do this from the command line. So go ahead and run that. That may take a second to download. And then give me a thumbs up in Slack when you've successfully installed the cask room and the cask.
Hey, Mark, I got a question for you.
Sure.
How do you, when you're in Slack, how do you highlight your text in that little box in pink so that it, you know, it's like a command and not just putting it in quotes or something?
Yeah, so there's a couple different strategies for that. I would maybe Google like Slack formatting shortcuts and such, but I can show you a couple of the ones that I use. So let me see if I can do this without it actually doing it. So if you, up in the top left of your keyboard, the tilde key, there's like a backtick. So if you put something in backticks, it's going to look like that. It's going to be like a little box. We try to use these formatting tools because Slack sometimes, if you're trying to copy strings, if you're trying to copy quotes and such, if you don't format them in a particular way, it's not going to copy correctly. And we have a lot of issues sometimes if we send you some code and you copy it and then you paste it, the characters are just a little off. Another thing that I like to do for code blocks is 3 backticks, some code, and then 3 backticks at the end. I'll put this here. So that's a code block that I just did. Yeah, it looks like Adam did it as well. So yeah, that's 3 backticks, then some code, and then some more 3 backticks at the bottom. That's really good for lines of code. Another thing that we'll do frequently, mainly for like instructions and such, is I'll do a greater than symbol, and then something, and then some instruction after it. So if you see there's that, it's kind of light on my screen, but it's a vertical gray bar and then instructions. So sometimes we do that just to, you know, try to differentiate visually instructions from other stuff. And another thing that I like to do, if it's kind of a dense lesson and there's a lot of maybe, that's one reason that we give you access to the README files for the lessons, because if you copy the code from that README, usually it copies pretty well. However, if there's some dense code that I need to paste into Slack, another tool that you can use is, you see by the input box just to the left, there's that plus symbol. So if you click on that plus, you see some options: upload a file, create a snippet, create a post. So if it's a really long piece of code, sometimes I'll use a create a snippet. So you can click on that create a snippet and you can give the code snippet a title, you can paste in the code, and then the really cool thing is that there's a drop down where you can tell it the formatting for the code. Is this JavaScript code? Is it Ruby code? Is it Markdown code? Things like that. So if it's a little bit more of a robust piece of code, I'll use a snippet sometimes. But I hope that answers your question. I'm sure there's a ton of other cool features that Slack has, but those are kind of the quick ones. Oh yeah, Christine put a
No, it's very helpful. It's I'm having a little trouble finding the backtick though, because I'm on a Spanish keyboard and everything's a little mixed up. So I was Googling backtick to find it on my keyboard.
Interesting, yeah.
Mark?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I apologize for interrupting. So my computer went down. I had to restart it. So I missed everything after the brew install Git. I did that one, and after that, I don't know what to do.
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
Sorry, guys.
No problem. I'm just going to scroll up. So I'll put this command back into, I'll put it into a new message.
Okay.
And then if you guys, looks like we have 10 thumbs up. I put this message at 10:54 a.m. So right now we're installing the Homebrew Cask Room.
Let
So I
me
just
find it.
I just pasted the command in just now. So what I'd like you to do is copy that command and paste it into on your command line and just hit enter.
Okay. Yeah, what the...
We're almost to the finish line, you guys. One tool that I wanted to go ahead and install, I don't know if Tom mentioned it yesterday. Tom's a big proponent of this tool. It's called Spectacle. Did he mention that yesterday? Does that sound familiar? Yeah, I don't think he got to it. Does anyone know what Spectacle is? Dana, what is Spectacle?
Spectacle, it's a very simple kind of little program, and it just adds functionality so that you can have more keys. If you're using, from the terminal lesson yesterday, how you hit control plus kill or underline, or A for the beginning of the sentence and then E for the end. This just kind of does that for a lot of stuff. It gives you a lot more commands, and you can customize them.
Yeah, so Spectacle, I'll put it here into Slack. There's also a link in the README. This is just a really handy tool. I mainly use it for formatting your windows. So particularly on your big monitor, if you have Slack and like a browser window and Atom, sometimes it gets painful to resize that stuff manually. What Spectacle does is it has shortcuts built in, and you can also customize the shortcuts. You just use the shortcut and it'll automatically like resize the windows the way you want it. So whether you want it to take up like the top right corner of the screen, the entire half of the screen. So it's a really cool tool. I'm still getting comfortable with it, but Tom's a big proponent of it. I know that a lot of people use it. So while we were here installing stuff, we were just going to go ahead and install that tool. And as we go through the course, there's a lot of tools that that I use just because I enjoy them. There's probably a lot of tools that you guys use. And if at any time, if you guys use something that you think may be of value, please let us know, because I'm always looking for shortcuts and helpful tools. So. Okay, so we have some scattered thumbs up around here. I think we're pretty good. Is anyone still downloading the brew cask, the cask room? Is anyone still having issues? Okay, that was good. So let's move forward. So the last thing I want to do while we're here, and then we're gonna move forward with the morning, is let's install Atom and Spectacle. So give me 1 second here. Let me think about this. Okay, so here's what I'm going to suggest that you guys do. Everyone close your terminal, like completely close the program and reopen terminal, just so those downloads and changes will take effect. So close and reopen your terminal. And then I think what we'll do is let's just, even if you have Atom installed, let's go ahead and install another version of it. And the reason we're going to do that is because if we install Atom using Homebrew, it's automatically going to set up what are called sim links. And we'll go into those a little bit later. You don't need to really, know the quick and the underneath the hood of what a sim link is. but it basically lets you type in shortcuts. So for example, you could type in Atom and then the name of a file, and it'll automatically open it up in Atom. You could type in Atom and then the name of a directory, and it'll automatically open up that entire file structure within Atom. So it's just a nice little shortcut. So even if you have Atom installed, this isn't going to break the bank or anything. So let's run these two commands from the command line. So go ahead and run that first one. You can run these separately. Brew cask install Atom and brew cask install Spectacle. And then that will conclude our morning installs. And then go ahead and give me a thumbs up once you have those working. If we just installed Spectacle from your link, can we skip that step? Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, Spectacle is just kind of like, a nice little feature if you want to use it. It's not required or anything. It's something that I'm trying to get into the habit of using because it is really efficient, particularly on a big screen when you have a lot of stuff going on. So I'm trying to get into that habit as well. And I think Tom will encourage you guys to use that because he's a big proponent of it. Atom is used to auto snap on Windows 7. I hate having to resize. Yeah, that's awesome. There's probably a lot of good tools that will accomplish this this feature, but I know a lot of folks they use Spectacles. That's great. So what we'll do, we'll take another minute or two to make sure you guys are good on this install. Then we'll have stand-ups. Then we'll take a break, give you guys a chance to stretch your legs and stuff, and then we will continue with our Git and GitHub coverage. All right, let's see. So we've got 9 thumbs ups. Got 10, 11. Ooh, keep those pledges coming. Christine, how are we doing on breakout rooms and such?
Forming them right now.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we'll take like, I don't know, maybe like 20 minutes. We'll do a quick stand up and then use the rest of the time for break and then come back or something. Maybe we'll do that. We got 13 thumbs ups. Looking good. All right. Cool. We got 15 folks. I think that's pretty good. Well, let's see. We got one message. So Aaron, do you want to, Aaron, hold tight on that message. I'll take a look at that at the break. I don't think it's like a deal breaker or anything. So yeah, so I think we're in good shape. Let's go ahead and we'll do a quick stand up, and then we'll use the rest of the time to give you guys some break time. And we will come back and continue with Git and GitHub. So Christine, are we in a good spot?
Yes, I am. I'm just missing Matt.
Okay. Well, you know, we could also like just take a break and do stand-ups when we get back too. Maybe that's easier.
Yeah, let's do a quick break.
Okay.
And, as soon as Matt joins, then we can go into our breakout rooms.
Okay. Yeah, so let's do that, you guys. It's 11:11 right now. Let's come back at 11:21 Eastern, and we'll hop into stand-ups and then continue forward. So we'll see you in 10.
Yeah, JJ or Sanaz, if you're still having issues. Sanaz, I think it's just taking time to download. JJ, if you want to share your screen, we could try to take a look as well. Oh, never mind. See, yeah, it just takes time. What we're actually doing right now is installing programs, so it will take some time.
Yeah, I think that it was working. It's just the percentages was very slow.
Yeah. I know.
Actually, can I share my screen with you, person?
Yep, go ahead. Yep.
Okay, let me just find it first. It just doesn't let me to close it. It says, okay, let me share the screen. So, do you see it?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so see this one, the little dot in the red spot? When I do it, it says it'll terminate the running processes. I don't know what is it doing.
Oh, press cancel. So you see on the bottom, it's asking you to type in your username for GitHub. Were you able to put that in yet, or have you not tried?
Oh, it's this.
Okay, so press enter.
Mm-hmm.
Your password, I don't think we'll see it, so.
I don't remember my password. I'm just gonna try.
Yep, just try a few times.
Nope. Oh, okay. Oh.
It says invalid name or password. So press the up button, your up arrow key. What we're gonna do is, yep, try it again, and it's gonna ask you the same thing to log in through your GitHub. If you can try to figure out your password, just enter that in, press enter, and see if that'll work.
My password. Let me just think.
Yeah, if you need to go log into GitHub and figure that out, then go ahead. But otherwise, as soon as you get past that, you should be able to. Oh, and you know what?
Let's
Hold on
just
a second.
Oh.
Give me 1 second. You have a typo. So.
What is it?
You misspelled cask room. You're missing an O. So whenever we're
Yes.
installing these things, just don't forget to just copy and paste straight from the text so we don't have any missing characters, because that's usually what the prompt is.
Right, right. Okay, where is the...
Mm-hmm.
This one, right?
Were you able to already complete brew tap castgram/cast? Is that already done?
I think it did.
Yeah,
Or
okay.
maybe it didn't. I don't know. Because...
Actually, no. So type the up arrow one more time, and what that does is it just brings the last thing you entered. Okay, so now press your left arrow key, right, because we're missing that O. So, yep, go in, add that O, and then run it. Yep, there you go. Yep, press enter. And actually, it shouldn't ask you for this anymore.
Username and password?
There you go.
It looks like, yeah, it looks like it's running.
Yep. Yep, so just next time, Control-C, copy-paste.
Okay, so now I'm just gonna close it and reopen it, or...
Yes, exactly. Close, reopen, and then finish the other two things I slacked to you. Cool?
Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem. Yeah, and you can stop sharing your screen whenever you have a chance. Perfect.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Don't forget to stand up and stretch.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, friends. So, so yeah, let's pop into our stand-up groups, and then we will come back and continue our Git and GitHub journey. So, Christine, are we ready to?
Yeah, so for those who have met, I'm actually going to split you up just for today with one of us. So just so no one's alone, give me another second.
No problem.
So all right, if you guys are back, you will be seeing a pop-up for your breakout rooms, okay? So those with your cameras off, I hope you're all back. And we'll be doing our stand-up.
Hello, guys, ladies and gentlemen. Cool. Well, let's do a quick stand-up. You shouldn't take too long anyway. But again, just wanted to check in. The 3 questions that we ask, just as a refresher, are any wins that you're having today so far, or even last night, homework and such. Anything that you could use a repass on, anything that you're struggling with, and then just how you're feeling in general, up, down, positive, how you're doing today. So let's start with we'll start with Kelly.
Okay. I guess the win was for the homework last night. I didn't think it was going to be that hard, but I guess I was happy that like the last 2 questions, it wasn't really something we went specifically over, and I was happy that like I Googled it and I figured it out on my own. So I guess that was good, and it didn't take me that long.
It's awesome if you worked on your Google food.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess I'm ready to just keep moving forward. I mean, first day like a little long and just tiring with intro stuff, but
sure,
I feel good about it. Yeah.
Cool. Sounds good. Dana, let's go to you.
Win yesterday was probably starting off not getting it, and then slowly but surely figuring it out, going into a breakout room on my own with Sorella last night. And I knew I was showing her some of the cool commands in the terminal, the control and option commands. And that was just so exciting and fun after a day of being, lost and struggling. And we both just figured it out. I knew what she didn't. She knew what I didn't. She gave me, the command for why I kept getting stuck in my terminal. So it worked because the quit wasn't working. But
that's really great to hear. So you guys helped each other out.
We did. We had fun.
Anything you could use a second pass on so far?
Probably moving things up and then down in the terminal, trying to save to different directories. That, not so much, but
yeah,
that's okay. We're getting there.
Cool. Hang in there. Sean, let's go to you.
Yeah, last night I got caught up on a lot of stuff. Those quizzes I wasn't able to take during actual fundamental times. So I got caught up on those and I did my homework. I actually hopped on what is the office hours, I guess, with that tutor. Yeah, he was
with Derek.
Yeah, he was really cool. And so knocked a lot out last night, but I screen shared with my brother last night. He's going to try to help me with the GitHub process, because that's one thing that I really could use a pass on. And I know that we're going to go over a lot of that, and like you said, we're going to do it over and over again. It's going to be second nature.
Yeah.
But I just don't like that it was like during the fundamentals, and I'm still not able to submit the freaking memory game. So
yeah,
yeah. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around that. I'm excited though. Like I like not knowing because I know that I'm gonna dominate that.
Yeah.
In a couple of days, so it's cool. It'll be fun. But yeah. So hopefully tonight, if I'm not too swamped with homework, I'll get with him again, and he'll actually help me with getting this first repository forked and all that good stuff.
Good. Yeah, I like the attitude. Yeah, please take advantage of Derek because that's what he's there for. So
I take advantage of everyone.
I think I'm glad to hear that. Pedro, how are you doing? Want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I'm muted. Mute.
There you go.
Second try. How are you guys?
There you go.
Okay, all good. So I mean, on my side, so far so good. With a lot of balls jangling in the air all at the same time, you know. Just fact that none of them fell down. I'm happy with it. So internet is good, connection is good, computer is okay. Software is, you know, so far I still remember of installing Windows and, you know, you are like praying and then almost 95%, oh shit, again, back to the start. So fingers crossed, knock on wood, so far nothing like that has happened. So I'm positive on that, you know, because the rest will come with time and naturally, I guess.
Cool.
And just one thing about the homework, I didn't finish last night. I finished it this morning because here it's now 4:30 afternoon.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I finish classes at 11 p.m. So depending on how do I feel, maybe I do it overnight, maybe I do it straight after the class, or I just sleep over on it and I do it the following morning.
Yeah, that's going to be like your time management is going to be really key. We had a student in the previous class that was in Sydney. And so I think his day started at 1 a.m.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he had like blackout curtains and I think he had like a 4-year-old. So bless his heart, man. He really had a go of it.
But I mean, the General Assembly has like what, 3 campus in Australia?
Melbourne and Sydney, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't have one here in Portugal, not in Switzerland, so, you know, I have an excuse.
I just assume Australia is like Mad Max and like you don't want to leave your house. So you probably didn't like want to commute, you know, who knows what'll happen.
Okay, fair enough.
How's that for painting with the
awkward here?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you finished homework this morning. That's excellent. Cool, Zach. Let's hear from you.
Yeah. So my repass kind of goes into my win for the night last night, but the repass would be just some of the language that's used. When I was looking at the homework assignment from Matt, there were just some things that I just didn't understand. And I think it was just how it was worded, which, you know, is probably more common than I think it is. But then once I got into the office hours, I'm sorry, what was his name again?
Derek.
Derek was very helpful. I just sat in there with him and I shot my questions at him and he shot responses right back and I completed the homework with ease. So he was very helpful, which was great.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah, I think some of the instructions on the homework were maybe a little advanced, or rather stuff that we haven't really talked about yet. So that's cool. If it's okay if it felt a little heady.
Okay.
You know, we're going to go over cloning and forking and stuff today, and so yeah. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that Derek was helpful. That's great.
Sure. Yeah, he even, you know, he went a little more in depth with some of the terminal commands and explained what they mean and why they do what they do. So that was very helpful.
Cool. I'm glad to hear it. Great. Okay, guys. Well, I will see you back in the main room. All right, it's like folks are slowly coming back. All right. Just waiting on Tom's group. Yes. All right, well, while we're waiting on Tom's group to kick off the rest of our morning, I put in a topic into Slack called Why Version Control. So just wanted you guys to think about, I'm going to mute something here. Well, I'm not host, I can't mute. Jason, would you mind muting your mic, please? So go ahead and think about these couple of questions that I put into Slack. So assuming that version control systems did not exist, how would you, for example, share your source code with other developers, collaborate with other developers, manage multiple versions of a software product? And then if you want to put some answers into Slack, that's fine. I may just call on a couple of folks to get your thoughts on this, but just want to kind of kick off this discussion with some thinking on version control in general and why it's a really good thing for us as developers. See some really good answers here in Slack. Really good thoughts.
Mark, I'm going to go ahead and close their rooms.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think they went on a field trip, actually.
They do have a really big group. Yeah,
that sounds good.
I'm going to close it. Well, we have time tomorrow to catch, tonight.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. Good to see you all. So we're going to continue our discussion of Git and GitHub. I pasted a screenshot into Slack. So what I want you guys to think about, just a little bit of a thought experiment. So why version control? So for those of you just joining us, I'm going to go ahead and get the discussion started. But take a few minutes and take a look at the questions in that screenshot. And then if you want to raise your hand or put some answers in Slack, let's just take a minute or two and discuss version control. So assuming that version control systems did not exist, how could we, for example, share our source code with other developers, collaborate with other developers, manage multiple versions of a software product? So just marinate on those three questions, and I'm going to go ahead and take a look at some of these awesome answers that we have here in Slack. So let's go through these. So Sean says, I feel like you can do all three via Git and GitHub. That's absolutely correct, and that's where we're headed today. That's really, really good. Dana says, it was like the old days sharing scientific research. Slow most of all. Version control puts that process in hyperdrive. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Dana, would you mind elaborating on that? So in the old days sharing scientific research, how did you go about that
in
process?
the old days, you know,
In the
it
olden
was
times?
Yeah, so long ago. You would, basically all scientific research was presented in manuals. You would get into publications, submit your research to publications. It would come out in, a monthly, bi-monthly publication, but not that frequently. It was very hard then to translate those and get them in any kind of live time to people around the world working on the same problem.
Yeah, that does sound like it'd be somewhat painful in a long process, huh? That's really good.
Slow. Things were on definitely on a yearly timeline.
Yeah. Zach mentions good old-fashioned photographs, pen and paper notes, and conference calls. Zach, describe the pain of conference calls for sharing information. What was that like? Is that an efficient way to do it?
No, and just with what we're using right now with this Zoom software, just being able to share screens and not having to describe what's going on, it makes it so much easier when everyone's literally on the same page.
Yeah, not to mention with conference calls, I imagine, there's scheduling involved too, right? It's like we've all got to, before we even discuss something, we've got to all pick out a time where we're all available. Yeah, that can definitely be a headache. USB drives, they're portable. That's really good. Google Drive. Jason, you want to elaborate on Google Drive? How is that a form of version control?
I think someone may have called me I think someone may have called me out and said that that is actually already kind of version control-y. So I would really just use it kind of like a USB drive. They, to my knowledge, at least will warn you when you're overwriting something that somebody else has overwritten. So I think it kind of packs in a couple of warnings, but it'll still get you messed up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think Google Drive is an excellent example. And to take it a step further, Google Docs. I mean, we use a lot of those internally, a lot more than I would like. But, spreadsheets, even our student tracking, how we, track our stand-up information about you guys and track our homework and such. That's all done in a Google Doc that we all can share and access. So I think Google Docs are a really great example of version control. Much weeping and gnashing of teeths.
Yes.
Plural teeths. FedEx your floppies, yes. For sharing, maybe we had to write codes on the paper and send it over to others. Man, that would be that would certainly be painful, huh? Dropbox. Does anyone else use Dropbox? Yeah, I'm a huge Dropbox fan. It's such a great interface locally, for sure. Sharing the files with a lot of comments in the code to make sure they're in the latest version. Zarella, you want to elaborate on that? Sharing the files with a lot of comments.
Well, I guess if we didn't have the version control, we would like if somebody does something to the code and then zip the file and send it to the other person, you kind of have to make sure to let them know what you did. So it will go back and forth, but it will have tons of comments on it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent example. All these are really great examples. Thanks for putting these into Slack. One thing so this last question, manage multiple versions of a software product. So that can be pretty crazy, right? We see that all the time. Like there's a version of software. I think overnight I updated my iPhone with the latest update, the latest version. But with most pieces of software, it feels like there's always like a beta version or a version kind of in progress. So it's like you can have access to the official release version of a piece of software, or if you're feeling really adventurous, you can totally maybe have access to the work in progress code. Not to mention that version control with Git and GitHub, we talk about open source projects. For example, Rails is open source. I meant to pull up an example of this, but if you go to the, maybe in the interest of time, maybe we'll take a look at it later. But Rails is open source, right? So if you want to contribute to Rails, maybe you want to fix a bug, or maybe you want to add a particular feature, even if it's really small, if it's something that would help you out and also help out others, you can get a version of that source code locally. You could make a fork of it and then clone it locally, make your changes, and then you can send what's called a pull request to the powers that be that manage Rails and be like, hey, I fixed this bug. I have this new feature that I request that you pull into the main code base, into whatever version that is currently in testing or in beta or released. We're going to take a look at that a little bit later. But that's another really handy feature of version control, is that it allows for open source sharing. That's something that you guys will really get to practice, particularly with your group project in Unit 3. That's really one of the big takeaways, is managing how to work on a team and how to share a code base with other people. Any more thoughts before we move forward on why we use version control? Cool. So, sorry, does someone have a question?
Oh, yeah. So I was just going to say, I don't know, my line of work for the past 10 years before this has been music production and programming, instruments and sound design. Mm-hmm. And sometimes a project will take me like anywhere between 1-3 months to complete, and I'll have like 50 saves, like literally like whatever it is, and then all the way up to 50 in my folders, just like bombarded. And I just thought GitHub was amazing, like if I had something for music production or sound design, like GitHub. And my brother, I was talking to him, he's going through the Austin course. He's like, well, finish this course and that'll be that'll be the app that
Yeah.
will have to get created. But I think it's brilliant the way it integrates and how you can, it's just, it can get really messy having 50 saves because like it says, you can't really see the small comparison between every other save every time you make a change,
Mm-hmm.
So I would try to do it, only make new saves with drastic changes, but it seems like GitHub is way more efficient at this.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So not only sharing code or in your case, music, workspace with other people, but just for your own purposes. I mean, if you make a lot of changes, maybe you want to have access to those previous changes. Maybe there's like a guitar lick or something you recorded a week ago and you still want to have access to that. So version control would be a very efficient and not very expensive way to track those changes. And that's exactly what Git does for us. Now, I imagine that code is not quite as, probably not as dense as maybe music files and such. So at that point, you probably have to consider, hard drive space and actually storing those huge files. Generally code probably isn't quite as big.
Totally.
But yeah, that's a really good point. For sure.
It does. It gets scary making huge changes, and I can imagine that's the same thing with building anything, an app, a website. Like you like the way everything's panned out and laid out, and then all of a sudden you want to get kind of daring and think outside the box and do something new. All of a sudden you screw up what you had before. You want to go back to what you had.
Right.
It enables you to be a little bit more outside the box and daring without being afraid of losing what you have. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that's something, as long as you guys practice good git commit, even pushing to GitHub and such, you really don't have to worry about losing your work. So that's another it's just a peace of mind if you know that you have your stuff, versions of it backed up. That's a really great example. Thanks, Sean. So I just put a screenshot into Slack. Let's move forward here. Let's talk about the difference between Git and GitHub. Sometimes this can be a little, sometimes the wires can get crossed. So first things first, Git is not GitHub. These are two entirely different entities, topics, things. So what is Git? On a basic level, Git is a program that you run from the command line. It's something that's local to your machine. An example of that is the fact that we just downloaded it, using Homebrew, right? And as we mentioned, your Mac comes out of the box with a version of Git. So Git is a piece of software, and it's also considered a distributed version control system. So there's several different version control systems out there. One that's not quite as popular, I think I mentioned it yesterday, it's something that I used at my first developer gig called Subversion, for example. So there's lots of different version control varieties of software, but Git seems to be the most well-maintained and the most popular version for version control. So programmers use Git so that they can keep the history of all the changes to their code. This means that they can roll back changes or switch to older versions as far back in time as they started using Git on their project. So it's a good idea, for the most part, whenever we're working on projects and apps, we want to do a Git commit early, and we want to get, a Git init early on, and we want to Git add and Git commit early and often. And that's something that a mantra that we try to preach. So as long as you do that, as long as you get into that habit, again, it's really a peace of mind that you're not going to lose any work, God forbid. Okay, so let's do a quick exercise. So I want you to think about some version controls, version control tools or processes that you've used. We just talked about a few of them. These could be formal processes imposed by a professor or a manager, or methods that you've used personally. So maybe just put an idea into Slack if you'd like to share some of these verbally, or just write the messages into Slack. I feel like we covered a lot of this at the beginning of this discussion, but are there any other methods? Maybe it doesn't even have to be a piece of software, some way that maybe a manager or particularly big corporations, sometimes they have, arcane ways of doing things. So are there any other examples while we're here that you guys can think of either saving your work, saving a snapshot of the work, or how you shared work amongst other people or coworkers?
At my last job, I worked at one of the larger banks here. So you would expect that they would have kind of a good system for that. but it wasn't the case. We all used Microsoft Excel 2010, and version control was basically saving a copy with a different name of the file, loading it, and there were big files. So, the servers would just be full of all these versions of different files. And, try and copy somehow the changes from an updated file to the main file. It was a mess. It was terrible.
Yeah, and I imagine with a financial institution, you don't want like an extra zero getting out of place. Like I imagine that's pretty. Not to mention like the hardware to store all that data. That's really crazy. Any other examples?
Yeah, I typed it in Slack. I was a registrar, and like sometimes when we were working on different files and stuff, we had one drive and we all could access it. It was a PC-based server that held this drive, and apparently it's about to just blow.
Yeah.
It's kind of old. And we would have to make up a system of what the latest version of a file was, and some of the folders could have like 13, 14 different files. And really, you just have to like check and see like the date that they were last saved, because otherwise, I mean, you'd be clicking through each of those files, and it was crazy. So yeah, that's not fun.
Yeah, it sounds like you were talking about like hardware. Did you guys back up that piece of hardware in the cloud, or any kind of redundancy in case that machine blew up?
Oh, Mark, no, we didn't. Yeah, the IT guy quit, and just lots of drama. So when the new IT guy came on board, he was like, "Oh my gosh, you guys are about to like lose everything that you've like saved. You know that, right?" So it's kind of like a mad dash to get it, cloud based. And I think before I quit, that's what the latest project was. And yeah, it was just overloaded with multiple copies of so many different files that it was really hard to navigate through what you needed, actually.
Yeah.
So in the wrong file, the wrong version, you'd be like, oh my gosh. So we had to for transcripts, we have to keep track of the credit and clock hours for the students. And so it'd be like final -1 was more than final. And then final -1 was trumped by the use this one, in quotations.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it was a interesting little file system we had.
And unfortunately, I feel like that's probably more the rule than the exception with some, financial institutions, universities, like these really huge corporation or entities. Yeah, sometimes it's not the most efficient way to do things. Cool, thanks for those examples. So to kind of sum up the difference between Git, we're talking about Git before we get to GitHub. Another key feature, so a code base in Git is referred to as a repository or a repo for short. So that's kind of the technical term. I know sometimes, I'm guilty of this as well, sometimes I'll call it a repo or maybe a directory or maybe a folder. But when we talk about Git and GitHub, kind of the preferred nomenclature, if you will, is to refer to it as a repository or a repo. So we'll say a lot, go to your remote repo, the class repo, or WDIR remote repo, or we'll ask you guys to create a new repo to put some project into or something. So we'll use that word a lot, repo. And if you want to find out a little bit more about the history of Git, it's pretty interesting. A gentleman named Linus Torvalds was the principal developer of Linux, and he also developed Git. So if you want to check that out, there's a link in README to find out more information about that. So let's take a look at GitHub. So that was Git. What is GitHub? Well, GitHub is a hosting service for Git repositories. So it's in the cloud. It's a great way to separate what you have locally, a great way to back it up, if you will. So this repo lives elsewhere, so you have some redundancy there. GitHub is also a web interface to explore Git repositories. So you can go on GitHub, you can search your colleagues' repositories, you can search for open source projects like Rails. All that stuff is on GitHub for sure. By the way, quick aside, I noticed in Slack this morning, I forget who it was, but they put their think they put their LinkedIn or their GitHub information. I forget who did that, but I was going to say that's a really good practice. We'll probably do that at some point, but it may be a good idea if you want to put it in one of the other chat rooms. A good idea to start following each other, maybe on LinkedIn, maybe following each other's GitHub. I'm sure you guys will do that in Outcomes, but that's also a great way just to kind of get that network started. Sorry, total aside. I remember seeing that this morning. GitHub is also a social network of programmers. So it's a great way to share code with other folks on your team or other folks, around the world. We all have individual accounts and put our code bases up on our GitHub account. So you can also have private repos. I think now it costs, it's maybe like $7 or $10 a month for like 5 private repos. If there's something that you don't want shared out there with the world, if there's something really valuable or precious to you, you can totally have, have some privacy settings. But generally, code bases are available, to the public. You can follow users and star your favorite projects. Developers can access code bases on other public accounts, like we just mentioned. And probably the key thing that we want to drive home is that GitHub uses Git. So Git refers to everything locally on your machine. GitHub is where you store those local Git repos. So you actually push those local Git repositories up to the cloud in GitHub. So that's kind of the delineation there. Can you use Git without GitHub? Well, think about this quote. I'll put this into Slack because this is really kind of sums it up, I think. So think about this quote. Git is a piece of software. GitHub is a company that happens to use this Git software. So you can think of GitHub, I guess you could kind of think of it, maybe like a Dropbox type situation where it lives in the cloud and it's a place to store your Git repositories. So the answer is yes, you can use Git without GitHub. And in fact, we all frequently do that. If there's something that we're just working on locally, you don't have to push it to a GitHub repo. Maybe it's just something you're noodling around with. If it gets lost or something, you're not stressing about it. Maybe it's something that's not even that important to push up to the cloud. Maybe it's something that you're not sharing with other people or that you even want to make public. So you absolutely can use Git without GitHub. The two are definitely, they're decoupled, if you will. Again, Git's local, GitHub is in the cloud. You can certainly use Git without GitHub. Okay, so that is the Git versus GitHub. Can you give me a fist to 5 up in the camera? Give me a 5 if you have a pretty good sense of Git versus GitHub, just what the difference is, where they live. I'm being too redundant here. Cool, okay, great. Well, let's move forward then. So let's take a little bit of a dive into the process. So we've been doing adding, adds, commits, Git statuses and such. Let's take a little bit of a look at what those terms mean. So why is Git tricky to understand? I just put a screenshot into Slack. So Git is tricky to understand because describing how it works, like many things in programming, requires a breadth of technical knowledge. This is going to be a tricky mindset to work with at first. So as we walk through some of these terms and such, I would encourage you, Matt had a very good analogy yesterday in that you don't need to know exactly how to operate, how a car works in order to drive. So the same principle applies here. We don't have to know this stuff chapter and verse. We just know how to operate the machinery here. There's a couple of links here in the README. I don't want to really go through them. They're mainly for your kind of FYI. But if you look on the screenshot in the README, there's this section, things we don't need to know but might be curious about. So if you want to dig a little bit deeper into what's going on under the hood with Git, here's a couple of bullet points. Directed acrylic graph, SHA-1 encryption, and then a term of a blob and a term of a tree. We're going to talk about trees a little bit more right here. Let me put this screenshot into Slack. So let's talk a little bit about this picture that's in the README. So trees, what are trees? Why are we talking about foliage with Git and GitHub? So even though you don't need to necessarily know how Git and GitHub works exclusively or explicitly under the hood, it's useful to know that your local repo consists of 3 main trees maintained by the software Git. So these 3 big trees that we refer to, the first one is the working directory. So this is the tree that holds all of the actual files that exist in your repo, everything that you're working on. The index acts as a staging area. So once you add, we're going to walk through some examples, but once you create a new file in a Git repo, it isn't added to the index until you do git add. And you've probably seen the messages in the terminal. It'll say untracked file or something, and then once you add it, then it's known to the Git software, and then from that point forward, Git will keep an index, or it'll track the changes within that file. And then the final main tree is considered the head. So the head points to the last commit you've made. Generally, you can think of the head, well, it's the most recent commit. It's the most recent committed version of your code. So even if you're working on some files, the head still refers to the last committed version of what you're working on. Any questions about that graph? We're going to walk through these examples, and I hope this is a little bit familiar from the pre-work and such, but any questions about any of that? Cool. I'm going to put another screenshot into Slack here. And then we're going to do a little bit of a code along here shortly. So Git has a lot of commands. We don't need to know all of them during the class, but just to make you aware, if you want to look at a list of the available commands, you can do git help-a. And as it says here, even though there's a lot of options, during this course, we're only going to use about 10. So you don't need to memorize this stuff or worry about it. This next little chart or graph, if you will, it talks about the Git lifecycle. And again, I feel like this stuff is better like when we're actually doing it. You can refer to this graph, but I just wanted to point this out to you. So these are kind of the different stages of your Git repo. So the first thing you have are untracked files. So maybe that's a file that you just touched from the command line. It's a file that you just created, but you haven't added it to the Git index yet. So it's not being tracked. You just created it and it exists, but Git doesn't know about it yet until you explicitly tell it to start tracking that file. The next section, let me screenshot this information below it. Maybe that'll be helpful. So untracked files, the file will not be added in the next commit. So it's stuff that Git isn't tracking yet. This next section is called staged. So staged files have not yet been committed to memory, but they are on deck, so to speak, for your next commit. So having read this, I'll put this question into Slack. How do we stage a file? So just a quick quiz. So given what I just read about a staged file, what would you guess is the command that we use to make that happen? Git add. Yeah, perfect. A lot of git adds. Excellent. So yeah, using git add is how we add a file to the staging. Number 3 here, unmodified. Unmodified. So I was going to say git init. So that's close. Git init is the first command that we do. We only need to do it once. And that's when we first want to tell the Git software to start tracking a repo or a directory. We run git init once, and it creates that hidden folder, actually, a Git folder. And within that hidden folder, that's where it has all of the version control tracking files and such. Yeah, number 3, unmodified. So maybe the file has already been committed, but it hasn't been changed since the last commit. So this happens really frequently. For example, if I'm working on you guys's our class repo, so we have, you know, like 13 weeks worth of files and such for each day, but maybe I'm only working on, you know, one file, one lesson for one day of those 13 weeks. So when I go through my git, commit, push process, have, you know, probably hundreds of files that are unmodified, but I have that one file as the important one that I'm trying to like push up to the repo, the one that I'm currently working on. So particularly with large frameworks like Rails and the mean stack, there's going to be a ton of files that you never even touch, and they probably won't ever really be modified, or if they're modified by the system. So there's a lot of unmodified information in your commits. Then finally, modified. So you have changes in the file since it was last committed, and you'll need to stage them again for the changes to be added in the next commit. And as you guys put into Slack, the way that we stage a file is with git add. That's the command. Dan has a question. What's the difference between the dot files and the dot files? Dana, could you give me a little bit more clarity on that?
When you list all the files in a particular directory in the terminal,
yeah,
I can tell if it's been the way I've been checking to see if I had initialized that directory or not. I'll see a dot file, and then I'll see a dot underneath it. Any elaboration on what those are? They're hidden files always.
Yeah, so a dot before a file is a hidden file. Sorry, what was the second question? A dot?
And then it'll be, you know, dot.
Oh, so dot, if I understand you correctly, the question is what's the difference between a dot and a dot? So any directory, if you look at all of the files using, so ls will just show you the visible files, right?
-A, exactly.
Yeah, -A or -LA will show you the hidden ones. So every directory has, I'll put it into Slack. Every directory has these two files, or these two paths as well available to it.
And maybe also before we get too far away, it's git add with a period and not just git add.
Git add requires an argument after it.
Okay.
So whether you do something like
and
this.
Does that period, single period, refer to the directory I'm in, and the double period refer to a directory above?
Yes, yeah. So git add dot. Sorry, one thing at a time. Let me go back to your question, if I'm understanding you correctly. It's when you look at the hidden files in a given directory, you have a ./ and a ./ correct? Is that what you were asking?
I don't necessarily see a /, just when I list all the files, I've noticed that there'll be, you know, in the hidden files, one with a period in front of it and one with a double period in front of it.
Right. I'm going to share my screen for 2 seconds. And so if you see here, can you guys see my terminal window here? So I just ran an ls-la. So Dana, are you referring to this ./ and this ./ Okay.
Okay, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I put into Slack. Every directory has this. All that this means is that you have, so the ./ refers to the current directory. The ./ refers to the parent directory.
Okay.
If you look at any hidden file in any directory, they're all going to have these two options available.
Okay.
So at some point, for example, I'm going to stop my share. If you went to the root of your machine, like the heart of your machine, for example, you're probably not going to see that ./ because you can't go any higher than that, right? You're like at the center of the universe as far as your machine goes. Sorry, and let me answer this other question. So you asked about git add dot. So git add dot so a dot refers to the current directory. So a git add dot will add every file within that current directory. Now, what I want to suggest you guys do, if you're going to use that, is that you use a -A. So that's kind of the preferred way to do it now. I think there's a slight difference between -A and dot, but I do know that -A is preferred. And I think that, I'd have to go back to the documentation, but I think that git add dot is actually being depreciated. So I saw messages in my terminal for the longest time saying, please stop using dot. We prefer that you use -A. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that message, but kind of the best practice is to use -A. So we would suggest that you use that. Cool. Any other questions before we move forward? All right. So let's actually get to some coding. So the first thing we want to do is I want to set up your Git prompt. So I just put a screenshot into Slack. So these are the steps that we want to do to set up your Git prompt. So again, this is going to add a little bit of syntax highlighting to your prompt. It's going to add a couple of small features. It's just something that we like to do. So let's take a look at this step 1. And to start, what I want you guys to do is go ahead and get into your terminal. And the commands that we're going to do, you can do them from anywhere because these are going to be absolute paths. They're going to be associated with your root. So we can do this from any directory that you're currently in. And I think maybe I'll share my screen just so you guys can follow along. Actually, I'm not going to share my screen yet because I already have these files. So let's just go one step at a time and see how this goes. So the first thing I want you guys to do, I'll put this into Slack. We're going to create a hidden file called git-prompt, and it's going to be a bash file. So I want you guys to run these 2 commands that I just put into Slack. The first one is going to create this hidden git prompt file, and then we're going to open it up in Atom. So give me a thumbs up in Slack if you get those 2 working successfully. Now, since we downloaded Atom with Brew earlier this morning, I'm hoping that the keyword Atom will automatically open up the file that you pass in as an argument. So if anyone's getting any issues, just let me know. Yeah, these are separate commands. And what this file is going to do, this is going to be a little bit of decoration for the prompt in your terminal. And you can pretty much configure your prompt however you want. We're just going to add a couple of features so we're all consistent.
I'm guessing if this starts working, we're going to have an Atom prompt come up or a Git prompt.
Yeah, so if this works successful, that second command, Atom, and then the path of that file, it should open up in Atom. And there shouldn't be anything in it, right? Because we just created it. We're going to put some stuff in there. But, and then to Dana's question, yes, they do need to be entered in order because we do need to create the file before we're able to open the file in Atom.
Originally, when I did the touch ~.git, I forgot the .git, so I think I may have made a file called just git without the dot in front of it. Will that cause conflict later?
I'd probably just get rid of it just to be safe. So you could do like an RM ~, or if you just hit the up arrow in your terminal, and then I would do like an RM and then keep whatever you named it. And that should remove it.
Okay.
It probably wouldn't do anything, but let's don't leave that. It may turn into a cavity at some point. So let's brush and floss daily, you guys. Another life lesson. Cool. So we got 10 thumbs ups. Thank you, Christine. I am full of life lessons that nobody gives squat about. So, but I'm happy to offer them. I'm happy to share my life hacks. All right, 14. All right, I think that's good. I'm going to paste in the next step. So again, I want you guys to copy. Let's save that for the party time channel, but that's a good article. So the next steps that I put in, let's touch a file called bash_profile, and it has a dot in front of it. So what is this file? What kind of file is this going to be?
Hidden.
Yeah, it's going to be a hidden file. So remember, anytime there's a dot in front of the file name, it's hidden. So go ahead and run these on 2 separate lines in your terminal. Touch bash profile and atom bash profile. And then go ahead and give me a thumbs up when you have that working appropriately. So what this bash profile, well, does anyone know what this bash profile file is going to do for us?
Lets you set just sort of shortcuts and things that you can use whenever you use bash when you open your terminal.
Yeah, that's perfect, Tom. I'm going
Mark, I think I already have that created. If I touch it, I'm just going to get a message saying it already exists, correct?
Sure. If you already have that file, is anyone else getting a message saying that it exists or something? If it exists, that's totally cool. Just run the atom bash profile. Just go ahead and open it up so we can add some code to it. Okay, some of you may already have one. I'm going to share my screen just for a second and show you guys what mine looks like, because I have a bunch of garbage in mine. And bash profile, as you guys go through your developer journey, there may be other things that you want to add to it. And I just want to briefly show you kind of the inner workings of what mine has. So let me share my screen just for a moment while you guys finish that up.
That's weird. Sorry to interrupt. I already had it created because I entered some code to change the prompt setup in my terminal.
Okay.
But when I touched it, it didn't say anything. So if you touch a file that already exists, it just nothing.
Do this for me. CD into your tilde, into your root. Excuse me, into your home folder. CD into that folder and then do an ls-a.
Okay.
And just make sure you have one bash profile.
Yeah, it's just one.
Okay. Yeah, you're probably fine.
It's weird. Okay.
That's what it's supposed to look like in our atom right now when you pull it up in the bash profile?
Yeah. So I already had it, the file, then I touched the file, and then I opened the file, and the file that I opened had all the modifications I already put in. So.
Okay, I think you're fine. If you already have a bash profile, these are just, kind of preferences. And as you guys get more savvy, like you're welcome to, you'll be adding a lot of stuff to this profile. The syntax highlighting and stuff that we wanted to give you guys, you can use it or not use it. It's just so we can have kind of a consistent looking interface. And I just wanted to briefly show you some of the things that you can put in a bash profile, why it can be so powerful. So the bash profile, again, every time you open a new terminal window, it loads this file first. And so I'll briefly just kind of run through some of the garbage I have in mind. So this sets some paths. It tells my terminal where to look for specific pieces of software. For example, I'm telling it which version of Postgres I want to use, because remember I mentioned earlier that your Mac already has a version of Postgres. And so we want to tell our terminal which version we want to use, the one that we install ourselves. There's some other garbage in here. So I have a little bit of, I have a couple of aliases. So aliases are really handy. You can write commands and assign them to an alias. And so all you have to do is type the alias and it'll run that command under the hood. So for commands that you use frequently that you don't want to type out longhand all the time, sometimes that can be inefficient. you can create aliases. I have a couple of aliases. So my prompt may look a little different from you guys's because I have some other, highlighting in here. Down here, I have some shortcuts. So for example, in Terminal, when I type in hide desktop, all one word, it runs this command here, defaults, right.com, Apple, Finder, blah, blah, blah. What that does is it literally wipes out my desktop except for the screensaver. So any files, folders I have on my desktop, it just completely hides them. Pro tip, that's really good when you're giving presentations and such, not to mention for technical interviews. When you guys go in for technical interviews and let's say that they ask you to take a code challenge or do some sort of technical coding, and if you're using your computer, it's probably just a good idea, just a best practice, just to hide all your stuff, It's not a huge deal, but you just want to sanitize some of your stuff. I mean, God forbid you have something on your desktop that offends someone or something. Here I have a couple of shortcuts, like to open Chrome if I want, or Slack. Down here, so I have a lot of directories like in my Dropbox. So I have our student repo, I have previous cohorts repos, I have folders for my projects and stuff. I don't always want to type out the entire absolute path. So I made aliases here. So when I type in WDIR2, it runs this command. So it goes into you guys' repo. So it's really easy for me to access it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Those are just some examples of things you can do. So let's see how many thumbs up we have. So we have 7 thumbs up on the bash profile. Yeah, so a lot of that code I had from previous General Assembly cohorts. I'm happy to send out or share my bash profile with you guys if you want it, as some sort of starter code. I need to go back and kind of clean some of that stuff up, but you guys should have a nice, fresh, empty bash profile that you can build on top of. So cool, we have about 13 thumbs up. That's excellent. We have 2 more steps here. So I'll go ahead and paste in the next step. So once you set up your bash profile, I want you to copy and paste. I'll put this into Slack. So copy and paste those 5 lines of code into your bash profile. And then you can save the file. What's going on with this first line of the code? I'll put it into Slack. What is that line doing? What is this doing? Jeez. One thing Slack doesn't have is spell check. Put an H in there.
Isn't that giving a source for where it should be pulling the prompt from? Because we're going to build the prompt into our second file, and then Bash will pull from that file that we made?
Yeah, exactly. So we could have put that get prompt code directly into our Bash profile. But as we go through the course, we'll talk about this concept. It's called a separation of concerns. Has anyone heard of that phrase before? Okay, Jason. So separation of concerns, it's a paradigm where to the extent that you can make files that just do one thing, or you can make functions that only do one thing, to the extent that you can make your code very modular, is considered a separation of concerns. So that's what we did here. We could have put the get prompt code into our bash profile, but what we're doing is we put it into a separate file in case we want to manipulate it later. and then this source keyword, it's the first line that's run when we open up our terminal because it's in our bash profile. So the first thing it's going to do is it's going to go to the git prompt file and load that code, and then load the rest of the code for any new terminal window that we open. Another example that I give for separation of concerns, some life lessons. So I don't know how you guys do laundry, but the correct, proper way to do laundry, I guess, is to have like all of your whites in one stack and do those, maybe all of your colors, maybe all of your delicates, you know, to separate your laundry and do them separately. That's probably the best practice. I don't really adhere to that. I just have one pile called dirty laundry. But technically, if I was going to be really pro about it, that would be the preferred way to do my laundry, is to separate it out. And it's a very similar way that we should approach our code in development. Where should you write these down? You really don't have to write this stuff down.
Where do I'm trying to insert this into the bash profile?
Yep.
How do I make sure that it's getting inserted into the bash profile? I closed that terminal a while ago and I can't find it again.
Okay. Oh, you can't find the file, or is it not updating your terminal?
I'm not sure. If I go straight to, if I open a fresh terminal.
Yep.
And just paste that in there, it gives me a bunch of errors. Command.
Okay. Let me share my screen real quick. Let me show you guys an example of how to paste this in, just so there's no confusion.
Yeah, I was confused on it too.
Yeah, let me share my screen. That's probably the better thing to do. I'm going to reopen my bash profile. And I know that I have a lot of garbage in mine, but we'll just pretend that this is entirely empty. Okay, so let me share my screen now. Okay, cool. So can you guys see my bash profile in Atom here? So what I want you guys to do is copy those 5 lines of code. And for you guys, the vast majority of you guys should have an empty bash profile. So just go ahead and paste those at the very top of the file. Paste those 5 lines.
Okay, I was trying to put those into the terminal. I thought that's what.
Okay, yeah, my bad. I should have shared my screen earlier. Yeah, so this first line is going to go out and grab the appropriate code from that git prompt file that we created, earlier. And then these 4 lines, if you take a look, you can probably figure out what it does. But these are just going to, the terminal readout is going to change on where we are in our Git tree. Do we have files that are not being tracked? Do we have files that have been added to Git but are not yet committed? Is our Git version control at a clean state? Are there not any files that are currently changed or that we need to pay attention to? So this is just a little bit of decoration that we're going to use. And once you paste this into bash profile, I'm going to stop sharing. Go ahead and save the file, close down terminal, and then reopen your terminal. And hopefully we're going to walk through some steps in a bit. We're going to walk through adding, committing, cloning, forking, and then we'll pay attention to the little small differences that your terminal is going to show you. This last thing I'm going to give you guys, go ahead and save the file. And then give me a thumbs up. Let me see. If you don't mind, go ahead and give me a thumbs up on Christine's message. Dana says, oh no, it undid my cool colors. So did you already have?
Yeah, we had a profile in there from this morning. Should I put that underneath this new code, or are they conflicting?
I would put this code above that other code from this morning. And if you don't want to use this, that's okay. I mean, it's just a suggestion. I'm assuming that most of you guys don't even have a bash profile. So it's just a way to visually kind of help you out with your Git. You can just look at your terminal visually and get all the information you need, in a quick manner. So when I close out my terminal, reopen it, git ps1 command not found. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, no worries. So let's start with Rachel. Rachel, do you want to share your screen? And we'll take a look at your error.
There. So I just closed it on reopen and I didn't do anything. It just has that.
Okay, let's take a look at your git prompt.sh file. Okay. Oh my God, you guys, I brain farted. I'm so sorry. There's a link right here in the README that I put in, and it didn't transfer when I did the screenshot. We need to put some code into your prompt. I apologize. Let me Slack out this link. What a dummy. See, I start talking about life lessons, and this is what happens. So what I want you guys to do, I just put a link into Slack. Go ahead and click on that link, and that's going to open up the raw version of some code. Go ahead and select all of that code doing a Command A and copy it all. So don't use the mouse. Let's do Command A and Command C. Paste all of that code into your git prompt file. My bad, you guys. So go to your git prompt and just Control V, yeah, and save that. Okay, how do we save not using the mouse?
Command S.
Command S. Jinx.
That's a quarter in the swear/mouse jar. Okay, so go ahead and close your terminal and reopen it, and let's see if that fixed it.
I had X'd out of my bash profile in Atom, and I have no idea where to go find it now. Okay. I made it in my home folder, but it was hidden whenever I listed it in the terminal.
Okay. So for everyone else, give me a thumbs up in Slack if the link that I put in works for you. I imagine that'll work for you guys. I totally brain farted there. So give me a thumbs up in Slack if that's working. Maybe give a thumbs up to Zach's message if you don't mind. And then Sean, do you want to share your screen?
That's kind of difficult for me at this moment. I need a file. I'm using my MacBook with video on it. I'm doing my iMac for it. So yeah, it's kind of screwed up right this second. But yeah, I mean, when I was in my bash profile, I saw everything, like my files in my home folder down to the left. Also, and it said bash profile.
Are you trying to reopen your bash profile?
Right, to enter that code. Is that where I was supposed to put that code? Is that what you were saying, or is that in between the source and the show?
Yeah, let me share my screen one more time.
Okay. Adam.
So in your, I'm going to share my screen. So I had to open up my Atom first.
Okay.
Okay. So if you open, do you have your bash profile open?
It's open now. Yeah.
Okay. So remember, I have a bunch of garbage in here. Just ignore that. What I want you guys to do is copy those 5 lines of code that I pasted in earlier, and just put that here at the top of your bash profile. Just paste it in right at the top. So that source and the 4 lines beneath it. So you're not going to have anything else in your bash profile. So just ignore all this other stuff. You should only have lines 1 through 6. And that I pasted into Slack. I will paste it in one more time.
You posted all that code under those 4 lines? Is that what
So I just select out 5 lines of code.
Uh-huh.
You see where it says source?
Yeah, I've got that same thing.
So copy that code.
Okay.
Go into your bash profile. Okay, and this is what you should see. This is what your bash profile should look like.
Mm-hmm.
Paste in that code and save the file.
The long line of code that you just gave us a link to, underneath all that.
No, the first thing I want you to do in bash profile should only have these 5 lines of code.
Right. Mine looks exactly like yours right now.
Okay, great. So the link that I just sent you, go ahead and copy all of that code.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen. That code goes into your Git prompt file. Do you have that file open?
Prompt file. Do I open that the same way that I?
Yeah. So I just put the command into Slack to open that file.
Let's see.
And so within this file, go ahead and copy all of the code from that link. So you can just do a Command A to select all. Christine put some shortcuts into Slack for that. Cool. Here's the last thing I want you guys to do is, in the interest of time for the rest of the sections, I want you guys to run this line of code, this git config global core editor atom. What this is going to do is it's going, anytime there's an error message or a merge conflict, for now, instead of dealing with the Vim editor, in the interest of time, this is automatically going to open up that message in Atom. So it's going to be a little bit easier to maneuver and to add messages and such. So what this line does is it globally sets the default editor to Atom. So anytime there's a text file, anytime there's a message, an error message, or a merge conflict, it's going to open it up in Atom versus your Vim. So you guys remember Vim is in the terminal, and it's the one that you can't use the mouse on. You have to use shortcuts and such. And I can show you an example of this. Essentially, that line is going to make our lives a little bit easier. Yeah, if nothing happens, everything is fine. So in our next section, we're going to take a look at, actually tomorrow morning, we'll take a look at managing merge conflicts. So it's going to be much, much easier to do that in a text editor versus doing that in Vim in the terminal. So just trying to make our lessons a little smoother. All right, cool. So if you don't mind, give me a thumbs up on that git config global core editor message. And we are going to move on. Hopefully by lunch, we're going to fork and clone our repo and get that working. So we got 14 folks. That's great. Let's do this. Let's get up and stretch the legs. Let's take a 5-minute break now that we have all this configuration set up. Thanks for hanging in there. And keep in mind, like with development and configuration, usually you just have to do this stuff hopefully once. So it can be a little painful just to set up, but going forward, things should run much more smoothly. So let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back at 12:49, and we will get our forks and clones working for the student repo. Okay, so we'll see you guys in 5.
Hey, Christina. Christine,
Yes.
are you there?
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick question. So just so for the sake of understanding, so on the bash profile file, I just have like 6 lines of code, right?
Yep.
And the big chunk goes on to Git prompts.
Yep.
Okay. So what this does is when I open the terminal or the bash, it's the bash profile is also going to read the Git prompts.
Yep. Right now they are linked together, and we set that up.
Okay. So the only thing that he forgot to say was to actually paste the big chunk of codes into the Git prompt file.
Yep, you should have copied all that big chunk of text, the 500 lines, and paste it into Git prompt and save those.
And because I went to my terminal and, just apparently nothing has changed. So is there something that should have changed or not? Or it's just on the background?
Correct. So all we did is, you know how yesterday we touched files, right? And we created files and we save them. They just sit in our computer. So it's not actually an action right now. We are just setting up some files. And just to double check that the files are there, if you were to add squiggly git prompt or squiggly bash profile, it'll open up that file. And if the stuff is there, then you're set. If they're empty, then there's a problem. That means we didn't save it.
Oh, fine.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Emil. Cheers.
No problem. Don't forget to stand up. Let's all stand up.
I'm actually going to go outside, go for a quick jog. I get back. I'm good.
Everyone was complaining their backs are hurting. Well, get up and stretch.
All right, friends.
Trying to set it up on 2 computers here so I get double the practice.
Oh yeah?
It's not all screwed up. I'm doing it on my iMac mainly, but then I know I'm away from this thing a lot, so I need it all set up just like this on my MacBook too.
Yeah. You use Logic on your iMac or Pro Tools or?
Yeah. Well, I used Pro Tools for a while. I used Reason. Logic is my go-to now, but I've got like ridiculous amount of plugins. Enough that I don't want my wife to ever find out. So.
That's funny. All right, guys. So in the interest of time, I wanted to practice Git initting a repo locally, creating a repo in GitHub, and then connecting the two. Did you guys do that in your fundamentals? Pushing a local repo to a GitHub? Did you guys go through that? Okay. Well, no worries. I think what we'll do, we're going to skip ahead because I want to fork and clone our class repo. So we're actually going to do that first. And then if we have time, we're going to walk through pushing a local repo to GitHub. And if we don't get to it this morning, we'll do it tomorrow with our other GitHub coverage. So we're in good shape, but I really do want to give you guys the opportunity to clone our class repo and get that going. So you'll have access to homework and lesson materials and such. So let's start with that. I just put a screenshot into Slack, and this is where we are in our lesson plan. So we're going to talk a little bit about forking versus cloning your first repository. So what is forking? Well, actually, let me put that question into Slack. Let me see if you guys know this. What is the difference between a fork and a clone? So when we talk about GitHub version control, actually this is specific to GitHub, what is the difference between a fork and a clone? So Adam answers taking a complete copy of a repo to edit yourself, diverging a path from the original file. Okay, that's a pretty good definition. Adam, you want to come on mic and maybe tell us which is which specifically? Like what is a fork and what is a clone?
The fork is like if you take a repo and you're basically like, it's like a fork in a road. So the repo is all one road up until the fork, and it continues off to the left, but then you take your own copy off to the right. So you can edit it and change it. And then a clone is a direct copy. So like you could have a fork on your GitHub account, but then you clone it straight to your hard drive. So a clone's kind of a local and a fork is on GitHub, like JJ said.
Yeah, that's a really good delineation there. Yeah, there's some really good answers here. Yeah, JJ hit on the head as well. So a fork is a copy of some other repo that you copy to your GitHub account. Both a fork and a clone, they're both copies, but a fork stays up in GitHub. So what we're going to do with our class repo, you guys are going to make a fork of it in your own personal GitHub account. You're going to make a copy of it, and it's going to live in the cloud. Then, just like JJ said, I can't really elaborate on that much more. But a clone is a local copy of a repo from GitHub. So a clone is that local copy that you make from the GitHub, from the cloud version. So it's important to consider they're both copies, but on bottom line, a fork lives in GitHub, it lives in the cloud, and a clone is a local version of a GitHub repo. So that's kind of the long and the short of it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a fork. You guys are going to make a fork of our student repo in your individual GitHub accounts. So let's do that first. Let me put a screenshot of our instructions here in Slack. So these are the couple of steps we're going to do to make your fork. The first thing I want you guys to do is click on, well, let me put this. That's the thing I hate about screenshots, is because when I do a screenshot, the links are not valid. So hopefully you guys have this bookmarked. The link that I just put into Slack is your class repo. This is where all the lessons live, all the homeworks. If you don't have this bookmarked, I would encourage you to go ahead and do that now. It's really good to have this in a handy spot. So I'll give you a second to click on that.
The second link that you have, the GitHub Students GA WIA remote, that actually takes me nowhere.
Did you, so you guys all, is anyone getting that page successfully? Okay, if you are, do me a favor, put a thumbs up into Slack for that link. Now, if you're getting a 404 error, as of yesterday, I officially invited all of you guys to this repo. So this is a private repo, and I had to give you guys access to it. So if you're getting that 404 error, check your emails, check your GitHub account email, and see if there's maybe something in your spam folder. But you should have received an invite to this repo, and I think you click on it, and then it gives you access. So we've got 9 thumbs ups. And I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to take a look at all the emails that have been sent, and I can actually see who has accepted and who has not. So I just want to make sure that, make sure I'm not skipping anyone. Okay, so you guys should be able to see my window, yes? Any thumbs up? Okay. Yes, let me check and see who has accepted. So for me, since I'm an admin, I'm going to go to settings, and then collaborators and teams. So yesterday I created a group for us, a team actually to be more specific. And these are all the students in the class. So it looks like everyone has accepted. So I have 10 thumbs up in Slack on that link. So I need to see 17 thumbs up. If you're getting that 404 error, do me a favor, paste your GitHub username into Slack, and I'll make sure that I have you added to the team. So JJ's asking, how did I add it? JJ, what is your GitHub? Oh, here you are right here. So I sent you an invite. So you should have received an email. So maybe check your email, add it as a bookmark. Well, you could just drag it, like select it and drag it, right here at the top in your bookmark bar, or you could go into the bookmarks tab at the top and say bookmark this page and put it in a specific place. Wherever you want to put it's fine. All right, so we have 12 thumbs up for that link. So I'm looking for 17 folks that successfully open this page in the browser. You do not have a bookmark bar. So if you go to bookmarks, or I think view, there's this always show bookmarks bar. You can select that if you want to see it or not. But yeah, you should have bookmarks available to you. All right, so we have 13 links. That's great. So again, if you can't see this, if you can't open this, your repo page, okay, so hold tight on the cloning data. You guys do not have access to clone this. We're going to need to do a fork, then a clone. So you guys have should have read-only access to it, so there isn't any accidental pushing of files and such. So just hang tight 1 second. I just want to make sure that everyone has access to this page. So again, if you don't mind, I see 13 thumbs ups. So I need 4 more thumbs up that you can see this page in the browser. Okay, we got 14. Looking good. I don't have an email, and there's nothing on my GitHub account inviting me to it. Okay. So Jesse, do you have a GitHub account? Jesse Klein 14. Okay. So let me go back into settings and make sure that you are added. So there you are right there, Jesse. I'm pretty sure you have to have an email account to open up a GitHub account.
Yeah, I have an email. It's just not, for some reason when I open GitHub or when I click the link in Slack, it's not letting me pull it up for some reason.
Okay. So
Yeah.
maybe check the email account that's associated with your GitHub account, because it should have sent you an email giving you access, and you have to click on something in the email. So maybe go to that email account, maybe check your spam folder, your junk folder, maybe it got filtered out for some reason.
It says I've been added on GitHub, but I just can't see it. I can't see that page for some reason. I can't open that link.
Okay, cool. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Do you mind sharing your screen, Jesse?
Jesse, can you just make sure that you're logged in? You have to be logged in to be able to view these files.
Yeah, I'm logged in.
Okay. Yeah, do you mind sharing your screen, Jesse? We'll see if anyone else is having this issue.
There we go. Share screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So scroll down there on the right-hand side. It should show you what repos you have access to. Click on private in that your repositories. Okay, it doesn't say anything. You've been added to the J Students organization. Are you a member of some other organization as well or something? That shouldn't matter though. You should be able to be a member of. Scroll up in the top right on your avatar, the top right of your screen. You're signed in as Jesse Klein. And what happens when you click on the repo link?
Here?
The one from Slack.
Oh. Let me see. Can you see it?
Sorry, could you, I must have missed it. Could you, or copy and paste it in there maybe?
Let's see. How do I share this screen? Because
it might be on your secondary monitor, Jesse. You might just be able to drag it straight into the monitor that we're viewing.
Yeah.
It's not letting me share everything, so here's the page.
So would you mind copying the link from Slack? And if you wouldn't mind, paste that into Chrome, into a Chrome browser window. So you're in Safari right now. Just because it's easier to see the URL in Chrome than Safari. So yeah, so copy that link from Slack, and then if you wouldn't mind sharing your Chrome browser, and we'll take a look, see what's happening. And I think everyone else is good. Yes, is there anyone else that's having an issue?
Yay! So it's just me.
That's okay. We'll figure it out.
Okay, let me reshare. Hold on.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that That's right. This is where you need to be.
Okay, cool.
All right, great.
Sorry.
So let's. Is everyone else good? I think we're all good and ready to move forward. And Jesse, would you mind unsharing your screen, please?
I'm trying.
Okay. All right. So cool. So we'll have access. That's the hard part. The first thing we want to do is we want to make a fork of this repo. So again, a fork is going to be a copy of this repo that's going to live in your GitHub repo. So this is the first step. Let me share my screen, and I'll walk you guys through the process here. So if you're on the main repo page, I want you guys to look up here on the top right-hand corner, and there's a button that says Fork. So if you click on that selection, you're going to see this window. It says, where should we fork this repository? So again, we're making a copy of this repo that's going to live in GitHub. So I'm a member of several different organizations and such. That's why it's asking me. But where you guys want to put it is your own personal repo. If you happen to have other organization choices here, just make sure that you're putting it in your own. So for me, I'm going to click on Mark Wright. And then you should see a message that it's forking GA students. It's making a copy. And then you should come to this page. And if you notice here on the top left, see how I'm in my repo, and it says that this is forked from, and then here's the GA students. This is the original fork. So this is my fork in my repo, and this is the upstream. We'll talk about that in a moment. This is where I'm getting the information for this repo here. So I'll put a message into Slack, and if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up. So if you successfully your repo. And if you have any questions, just hit me up and we can take a look at your screen or something.
Mine shows up correctly like yours, Mark. If I go into...
Let me stop my share.
If I go into my own profile, I don't see anything there, but I can go back to this unit and it'll show up exactly as you just had it.
Okay. Do you mind sharing your screen? Let's take a look.
Sure.
Okay, that's good. So we have 14 folks that successfully forked. That's awesome.
And Richard, you might be looking at your overview tab and not your repository tab.
That could be.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little tricky. You just want to make sure. Okay, so that looks good.
Yeah, I went into here and I thought that it would show up in this. Is that where it's supposed to be?
Yeah, so those are your repos, yeah. So that's your clone, excuse me, your forked version of our repo. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, cool. Just make sure.
Yeah, looking good.
All right.
Okay, let's see who else is having an issue. So Dana.
Mark?
Yes.
Can I please ask you to walk me through the page, please? Because I was behind. My computer crashed again. I had to restart it again and start everything over. So how can I get to the GA students repo?
Okay. I'm going to paste a link into Slack.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So click on that link right there, and you should be able to see the repo. You should have permission. I believe everyone's accepted access to the repo.
I got the email last night. Okay.
That's great.
Okay. So from here, I just opened the page. It says WDI remote.
Okay. So can you share your screen for a moment? Are you off camera?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I turned off my video because my computer crashes.
Okay. That's okay. I'll share my screen.
Sorry about that. I think it's a
Oh, no, it's okay.
I don't understand.
So,
okay, do you see my screen?
I can, yeah. So look in the top right of your browser window, and you see that button that says fork?
Yep.
Okay, click on that.
Okay.
Okay. And then click, so you only have one option, that's good. So click on that. So we're going to make a copy of this repo, or a fork, if you will. We're going to make a fork in your personal repository. So go ahead and click on that. So that's, we're telling GitHub that we want to make a fork in your repository.
Okay.
And so there you go. So now you have a fork, which is a copy of this repo. You have it in your repo. So see at the top where it says Sanaz Jamblu, and then underneath it says forked from. So that tells you that this is a fork of some other repo.
Okay, so fork means copy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Fork is a copy that lives in GitHub. It lives in the cloud.
Okay, that's interesting. I like the fork. Okay.
Cool. All right. Is anyone else having difficulty? Dana, did you get your fork working? And Shanaz, if you don't mind,
stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Dana, are we good? Okay, cool. I see the thumbs up. All right, friends. So we just made a fork. The next thing we want to do is we want to make a clone of your fork that we're going to bring down locally on your machine. So again, this is going to be a copy of your fork. So we copied the repo to your repo in GitHub, and now we're going to make a copy of that repo. I know it's a little confusing, but we'll talk a little bit more about this process. It's called the open source process or workflow. And so there's a really important reason that we're forking and then cloning this repo. This is how you contribute to open source projects and such. So let me share my screen one more time, and we're now going to walk through cloning our repo. So you'll have a local version. So what I want you guys to do is make sure that you're on your forked version. So I need to go to my forked version. And again, the reason that you know you're on your forked version is that it tells you right here in the left-hand corner. So you see this little like wishbone fork icon, and you can see that this copy lives in my repo, and it's a fork from the original version, original source. So make sure that you're on your forked version, and go over here to the screen button that says clone or download. And hold that thought 1 second. Because if we're going to use SSH, we want to make sure that we set up our SSH keys first. So let's set up our keys first. I'm going to put this link into Slack. So go ahead and click on that link. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell GitHub, we're going to create a crazy encrypted hash that's going to tell GitHub that it's okay to clone and fork or to clone stuff from your machine. So it's kind of like a thumbprint. So we're going to add your machine's thumbprint to your GitHub account. So going forward, it won't ask you for your username and password. It'll be a very seamless experience. So we need to do that first, because it'll save you a lot of trouble in the long run. So go ahead.
Mark, do you have to do that for each separate clone and repo, or because I've already done this once, so should I have to do this again now, or?
Yeah, if you've already done it, you should only have to set this up once.
Okay.
I'm going to stop my share real quick. So let me ask a question. I'll put it into Slack just in case, because I know that you guys have in the pre-work pushed and pulled repos. Give me a thumbs up in Slack It's not going to hurt to set it up again if you're not sure, but give me a thumbs up if you have set up your SSH key in GitHub.
Hey, Mark, this SSH key is basically telling GitHub that you're giving permission to like do whatever it's asking you about, kind of?
Yeah.
Like, to delete a file on GitHub, so I had to create some sort of a key, and it looks like this is the same thing?
Yeah. So it's, for lack of a better term, it's kind of like a thumbprint. Otherwise, every time you want to do something, every time you want to pull from this repo, every time if you want to push some work up to your forked version, it's going to ask you for your username and password every time. That's going to get really, really burdensome. So the way around that is we want to set up an SSH key. So it's kind of like a thumbprint it's a thumbprint of your local machine, and we're going to paste that into your GitHub account. So going forward, you won't have to do that username and password every single time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's already what I did. So
yeah, and if you're not sure if you already did that, that's okay. You can walk through these steps, and then when we get to the part where we add the key to GitHub, if you already have that key, which we'll be able to see, it's okay. If you already have a key set up, that's no problem.
I'm on step 2. And I don't know, it just took me down to I had no message other than just like a little, is that a carrot or a shovel? What do y'all call it?
Step 2 of generating step 2 of the GitHub documentation that I just pasted in?
Yeah, generating a new SSH key.
Okay. All right, let me share my screen real quick. Let's walk through this together just so we're all on the same page. I'm going to share my screen and we'll see what the result should be. So you guys should be able to see my terminal window here. So step 2 in that link that I sent you, it gives you this command. So what I want you guys to do is copy that command, and right here where it says your email at example.com, put in the email address associated with your GitHub account. My email address is mark.wright@gmail.com. So you guys need to put in your email address into this command before you hit enter. So go ahead and do that.
I'm sorry to interrupt again.
Yeah.
For some reason, I'm not even pressing enter. I literally just Command V to paste that in there. And then I want to type my email address, but for some reason it's just doing return for me. And it's just going straight through. I don't understand why.
Yeah, no worries. Sean, you want to share your screen? We'll take a look.
All right, I'll share this one. Actually, yeah, again, the computer that I have the video up on is not as up to date as my iMac.
Okay, sorry. So are you able to screen share or you aren't?
Or not? Yeah, I mean I could, but my terminal on this computer is not up to date like this one is. I'll just kind of do that in a second.
Okay. Sorry. Can you describe it one more time? If I can't help you, maybe we'll set up some time later to set it up.
Yeah.
But you can copy it in, and it's not.
You can just move on. I'm going to type it manually since it keeps on. It just says it's generating the public-private key, but it's not even letting me type in my email address. It just keeps executing the command before I can even, backspace type in.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, maybe just try to do it. Try to do it manually, and then let me know if that still gives you issues.
Okay.
And for the rest of you guys, if you don't mind, Christine just put that command into Slack. If you wouldn't mind, give me a thumbs up if that works, if that runs successfully. Okay, Sanaz, so you're in good shape. So we're going to run to the next step here.
Yep, so what I'm doing, guys, since there's so much going on in Slack right now, I am pasting the steps, so give it a thumbs up. We're going line by line. If you're having trouble, you could give me a thumbs down, but otherwise, just pay attention to this order.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen one more time, and let's take a look at what happens here. And Jesse, hold on one second. I see your message there. So if you click on this command, it's going to generate the private public key and such, which is this crazy like 256 character string. Enter the file in which to save the key. Now, I'm going to hit, this is where we want to save the key, but I'm assuming I'm going to get an overwrite message as well because I already have this file and I've already generated my keys. If you get a message that says overwrite, go ahead and click no for now because I'm going to assume that you already have a key and you've already set it up. So just go ahead and do in. But for most of you, I would imagine that you don't have this file, and so you shouldn't have to worry about the overriding. But I've already done this before, so it's asking me if I want to overwrite the file. I could overwrite the file, it's not that big a deal, and I would just have a new key, but I'm just going to choose no for now. So if you guys see that overwrite message, it means that you're probably already in good shape. So I'm going to go ahead and click in. JJ, you do not have to enter a new file name. Just go with what it suggests. That's the best place to put it. And then if it asks you for a passphrase, like it says in the documentation, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If it asks you for a passphrase, I would just leave that blank. So just hit enter twice. And that'll be fine for now.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Is it a problem if we did enter a passphrase?
No, just remember it.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it should be fine. I just, yeah, I'm not doing anything with like nuclear codes and such, so I just choose to bypass it. No, you should be okay. And thanks, Christine, for putting in these messages. So once we get through those steps, a key has been generated and we've saved it to this hidden file. As you can tell from that path where it says enter file in which to save the key, I'll paste mine into Slack where I put mine. So this is where I put my key. This is actually a hidden directory. So now that we have the key, now we want to add it to the SSH agent. So this is something that's going on under the hood that kind of validates these keys. This stuff is above our pay grade. We really don't need to sweat the details. We just want to go through the documentation and set it up the way that they suggest. So I'll put this command into Slack. So run this command from the terminal prompt. And you should see a PID number. So a PID number stands for a process ID. Yesterday, Tom walked you through, for example, the activity monitor. If you opened up your activity monitor, everything that's either currently running, well, everything that's running on your machine has an ID number to it. The reason it has an ID number is so your computer can keep track of all those processes. More specifically, when you do like a force quit or something in Finder, what's going on under the hood is it's running a command that looks something like this. So it's actually running the command kill and then the number of the ID, the process ID that you want to kill. So frequently we'll do this from the terminal if like our meme stack server locks up or if our Rails server locks up. Occasionally we'll have to go into the terminal and just kill the process manually. But that's what that PID or process ID number represents. So go ahead and paste that eval line into Slack and you should get something that looks like agent PID number. So this is what I got when I ran that command. And then if you get that PID number, which means things are going successfully. By the way, you guys should, I don't think the odds are good that you're going to get the same ID number that I did. You guys probably figure that out, but you guys should have some other random number. And once you get that, go ahead and run this last command that I put into Slack. So this is just going to add that PID to the file that we created earlier. So that file should look familiar, that ss.ssh hidden repo, and then the ID RSA file. So it's just going to connect those under the hood. And if you run that last command, the ssh add, you should see something that looks like this. You should see a message like identity added, something similar. By the way, I mentioned this earlier. I just want to kind of re-mention that sometimes setup can be a little painful and such. This isn't, we do this stuff like once and we're good to go. A lot of like the first and second week, sometimes we have to go through these kind of setups and stuff. It's not always the most fun thing in the world, but once we set this stuff up, we're pretty much good to go. So I don't want you guys to think that we're setting up SSH keys all day. We'll be over the hump soon, and then we'll be smooth sailing for sure. But this is part of development. Occasionally we have to set up new software and customize it and stuff. So setup is like getting a new phone or a car. That's pretty accurate, I would say, for sure. JJ says, I got command not found. Okay. So is everyone else, I see 10 thumbs ups. If you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up at the identity added line. And we're almost done. I know we have like 3 minutes to lunch, and I want to respect you guys' time. So we'll just finish this after lunch, wherever we leave off. But we're super duper close here. Yeah, it is beer 30, huh? Well, if we were in Switzerland, it would definitely be beer 30. Okay. Cool. Richie's SS key's been set up before. Yeah, so you guys may have already set up your SSH key, and that's great. Again, it's not going to hurt you if you go through this process again. I'm going to paste in a link. So this is the next few steps that we need to do. So we created the key locally. Now what we're going to do is paste that key into our GitHub account up in the cloud. So if you want to click on that link, there's just a few steps here that will finish up this process. And the first thing we want to do is we want to copy that SSH key to our keyboard. And a quick shortcut for that is this command that I just pasted into Slack. So this is a terminal shortcut. It's just going to copy the contents of one file, and it's going to put it onto our clipboard on our machine. And if you run that, and actually, no news is good news. You're not going to get a message saying that that worked successfully. We'll see if it works in the next step when we actually paste it into the appropriate place. And if it isn't working, we'll go back and access it a different way, so no worries. So once you run that command, we're going to copy that into GitHub. For this, I'm going to share my screen, and I'll show you guys where we're going to paste this. So let's go back to your account, your profile. Actually, you can do this from anywhere, but just go up to the top right and click on your avatar. And then let's go down to settings. And you should see some page that looks like this. Yeah, so to answer Dana's question, when you run that pb copy command, no news is good news. So you will not get any kind of confirmation message or anything. So again, after you run that command, go back to GitHub, go under your avatar in the top right, and click on Settings. And here on the left, there's a section called SSH and GPG keys. So we want to click on that selection. Well, I can't copy that. But we want to go here, and I already have a few keys. I have a couple of different machines. So I have a key for the laptop I'm on currently. I have a lap for my secondary laptop. I have a key for my Cloud9 account if I want to do any kind of like direct forking or cloning. So there's a good chance that you may have some keys in here already, or you may have keys for several different devices, and that's pretty normal. So once you get here, go ahead and click on this new SSH key button. And for the title, if you just want to put something like, you know, the name of your machine, I don't know, Schmitty's laptop SSH key or something. And then if you highlight, click in this key area and you do Command V or you paste, this is where you see if that PB copy command worked. So it should paste in this crazy looking SSH SHA hash, this crazy garbage. But you can see that this is some encrypted hash code. And then right at the end, you should see this like equals your email address. So all of this stuff is that fingerprint that connects your local machine to GitHub, and it lets it just go through and bypass typing in your username and password every time.
Is this the only way to make an SSH key? Or is there...
There may be other ways. We'll use some more like security type libraries for the mean stack and the Rails, for the Ruby and Rails apps. But as far as like just locally generating a hash, this is the most efficient way to do it. Yeah.
Okay, I did it, and I did not do it this way, but it did work, and I was able to like manipulate files through GitHub.
Oh, cool. What was the other way that you did it?
I did it all through the terminal, actually.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, I was watching you guys do this, and I know that I did it correctly because I was able to remove, like, delete, and like manipulate folders inside of GitHub, and it was asking me for like a key, so I had to go like do that, and I just did it all through the terminal, and it ended up working. But I didn't remember having to do all this, but it seems like it's working the same. I just did it a different way.
Yeah, the reason we're doing it this way is mainly because the GitHub documentation I think is really well done, and this is how they walk us through it. So that's kind of where we're following their best practice here. But yeah, there's probably several different ways to encrypt to make these keys for sure. So give me a thumbs. I'm going to stop sharing. So we're going to call it there. When we come back from lunch, like 2:35. Like 2:33, give you guys a few extra minutes. We'll finish up by, we made the fork of your student repo, and we'll just go ahead and clone it down. So we're in really good shape. Yeah, so we'll just knock this out after lunch and then move forward to our HTML coverage. So if you don't mind, go ahead and give me a thumbs up in Slack if you were successfully able to paste your SSH key into your GitHub settings account. And if you were able to do that successfully, go ahead and break for lunch. And we'll see you guys at, we'll say 2:34 p.m. And if you're still having issues, I'll hang out for a few minutes and we'll get you up to speed. Otherwise, we'll see you guys at 2:34 Eastern. Have a great lunch.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
When I did my my paste at the end of the crazy code, and instead of giving me equals my email, it says your email at example and then my email. So I don't know if I did something wrong at the beginning, or should I just fix my email right here?
Yeah, it sounds like when you generated your key, when you copied the command that said your email address?
The the first time I copied all the lines that were there.
Okay.
And then the second time I redo it, but I redid it with my email.
Okay. Yeah, I think what you did is you ran the code one time and it generated like a yourexample@example.com email. And then did you say you did it again?
Yes, I did it again because the first time on the link that you had, it said the instruction says copy and paste this code, and it was 3 lines. But then you told us that we were supposed to put our email on that one, so I rerun it just with 1 line and with the correct email.
Yeah, I think it sounds like what you did is you did it the first time, and then when you copied that key from your local machine, it probably still had that example email still in there, because it sounds like if you copied it in. So now if you change the email on GitHub, it sounds like since that's a copy of what you have locally, they're not going to match.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
So what I would do this. I've got to hop off for a meeting, but I would run through those steps again.
Okay.
And when it asks you if you want to overwrite your file, say yes.
Okay.
But before you do that, make sure when you copy the line where it asks for the email, make sure that you put your email in there. Because I think what you did is you ran it again with your email, but you didn't overwrite the file, so it still had like the example email in there.
Okay.
That's what happened. But try that, and then if you still have issues, we'll get you set up when we come back from lunch.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, you're in good shape though.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Have a good lunch.
Thank you.